Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our Election Integrity Candidates' Rights Symposium. You are very valued, and we appreciate you are an integral part of this process to get the truth and the word out of what's going on in Oregon. My name is Hindman-Allen, and this is Wong. Thank you. And I just want to publicly thank God for continuing to reveal things that we need to know in order to restore justice in our government, to return to a compassionate, honest, and ethical standard, putting the best interests of the people first. Our eyes have been opened the last 2 years in many ways. Some have had their eyes open for longer, but others have really had it galvanized. Watching the continuous counterproductive, prosperity-stripping, extreme policies being rolled out to what seems bi-weekly make you wonder, who elected these people? How are they continuously being re-elected into office? Are people that unaware that you would vote for people who seem to not work for the best interests of people? Whatever your current opinions about the condition of our elections are, any thinking person at one point or another have had this cross their mind. I ran for Clackamas County Commissioner in this last primary, and Wong ran for Metro. We ran to correct the government overreach, protect liberty, bring accountability and collaboration with citizenry back into government. Thankfully, all of our grassroots candidates were on the same mission too, and some made it into the general. With the debacle that occurred in the Clackamas County primary election, my instincts and intuition were on high alert. Something didn't feel right, but I could not put my finger on it. Edtl, who's running for state Senate District 19, said, "Dana, you need to get in touch with Meg." And lo and behold, the Justice League of Oregon was born. When I saw the screenshots and strange occurrences with the delayed count and barcode issues, I knew this called into question the integrity of the whole election. We soon joined forces, and I knew it was our ethical duty to try to get to the bottom of it. Have the state and county explain these things to us, because the government is supposed to work for us. They apparently are not in the same mindset, as you will see. As we continued, more and more things were revealed by others, to which you will hear their stories today. What I've learned this far in my life is when something doesn't seem right, it's most likely because it's not. We want the public to know because awareness is the first step to change. We carefully, methodically put the information in a format to illustrate what we believe to be a substantial case in a precise manner. We hope you will take all the information from the speakers here to heart. Get busy making changes. Having honest elections are essential in the quest for electing quality candidates, protecting, maintaining freedoms, liberties, and a cooperative government. It is up to all of us to restore confidence in our elections and not get swayed by all the catch-all phrases of conspiracy or disinformation. These phrases are designed to stifle you when they are overused and attributed to people trying to research, seek the truth, and dig a little deeper. Don't let those labels stick. Keep striving for higher ideals and honesty. Our first guest is one of those people striving for integrity and transparency, who was doing what she felt was right and came up against those who wish to keep anything questionable under wraps. I'm excited to hear what this brave patriot has to say. Former Mesa County elections clerk and the real-life star of the documentary Selection Code, which follows her story in Mesa, Colorado, when she made a backup of her county's Dominion voting system server, only to stumble across evidence of manipulation in the recent local city county council election, and also the 2020 general election. Tina's discovery ignites a chain reaction upending her life. Without further ado, let's welcome Tina Peters, former Mesa County Clerk.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome. Can you hear me all right now?
Excellent.
Yes, it's been quite a year and a half, and I'm glad that you're in such a place that your officials have challenged what's going on in our election integrity movement. And you know, I think that we're no longer called conspiracy theorists. You know, there's so much proof out there that a person has to be blind not to see it. But it's important to note how many people do not know what's going on. And that's why, for those of you that have seen the selection code, I encourage you to have home parties, share it with the people around you on social media, far and wide, because we need to let people know what's going on in your state, in your municipality, as well as all over the country. So as was mentioned, my journey started back in with the April 6, 2021 election at the 2020 election. Because we're a very conservative county, I wasn't surprised that Trump won. But we had people coming in and saying, you know, we know he won, but not as much as he should have. And so I kind of pondered that a little bit, and then we had folks that were on the ground doing canvassing, probably a lot of the same things that you were doing there, and they kept coming back and telling me that there were irregularities. And I'm elected by the people. I'm still the county clerk and recorder, even though they have illegally removed me from office. But when you're an elected official, you take an oath to the people who elected you. Those are the only ones that can remove you from office by a recall. In this case, the crooked selected judges and Secretary of State Jenna Griswold petitioned the court to remove me because I would not agree to not use Dominion voting systems, and I would not recount, repudiate, or renounce what I said about Dominion voting systems needing to be more transparent to the people. And also they wanted me to give them a 4 p.m. every day of accounting. And it was a long list of unlawful demands that they made on me. And when I wouldn't sign it, the Secretary of State sued me and took it to a judge and said, see, she's going to break the law again. Nothing that I did was breaking the law. Making a backup of your election system is actually what is required by law. In Colorado, it's 25 months, and across the country, it's 22 months. So I did my due diligence. You know, I look at the people who did not do that, the folks that did not do that, they're in violation. Our statute reads that all the access and audit log files must be preserved. And that's exactly what they deleted, was 29,000 access and audit log files that would have proven how they got to the result of the 2020 and the 2021 election. But they erased that. That's like erasing the evidence of a crime, right? And so, and it was some time afterwards when Jenna Griswold made doing a forensic audit illegal. And that, you know, that election rule that she put down, we call her Queen Griswold, and other egregious acts such as getting the legislature to pass a law against what I did and usurping every county clerk in all 64 counties from conducting their own elections, which is the precursor to our H.R. 1 federal controlled elections. And that's what their goal, that is what their purpose is in appointing Secretary of States and election officials, and even right down to your city council elections, as I'm sure you know by now. And what I tell people, I say, you know, everyone has to get involved. that you have to get involved. You know, I hear people complaining. I did a breakfast and a luncheon yesterday. I hear people complaining about Joe Biden and you know, all these people in Washington. But I said, what are you doing locally? What are you doing yourself? Because if we start at the local level, and everybody takes care and stays within their rails at the local level to eradicate and keep their eyes on the nefarious acts that are going on, then if every municipality, every county, and then every state does this, then it will affect the national scene. So I want to encourage you, if you have not been involved, I did not get involved until 2016. I went to a GOP volunteer meeting, and I was one of 8 people there. And I said, oh my gosh, I thought people that were good at this were doing this politicking thing. And so we have to realize that your neighbors, your friends, everybody, if you want to preserve your liberty, has to get involved. And it's not getting involved in politics. That seems to be a dirty word for some. It's getting involved with the preservation of the republic and the freedoms that you enjoy. So that what they've done to me is just over the top. Once they found out that I had this proof of the election irregularities, and no one had seen inside the machines before. And so first they raided, I was taken to Texas right after the symposium, and I was hidden because they were afraid for my physical security. My hotel room was forcibly broken into. Thank God I wasn't in there. I'm sure they were looking for the image or some information. Then I was moved to 24/7 security until the first report came out. How many of you have read the first, second, and third report? Is there anybody in there? I see 2, 3. How many hands? Okay, so you owe it to yourself to understand the first, second, and third report, and they're very easy to understand. There's an executive summary in the reports in the beginning, the first 8 pages. If you'll just download, you can get them on my website, tinapetersforcolorado.com, or you can go on Frank's speech. That's actually where you should be getting your news. There are wonderful, wonderful newscasters, people that will tell you the truth, that used to be with Fox News, and they're no longer with Fox News because they wanted to tell the truth, and others. I would encourage you to go there to get your news. And other Patriot Party Network, AGN, OAN, just get your information from the truth tellers. So after that happened, the first report came out, I felt safe enough to go back. Then a few months later, the second report came out. So the first report showed that they had deleted 29,000 election records. The second report showed that they had, and more. And you can see in that report, you can see the difference between number one that we took before they did this so-called trusted bill. Isn't that funny how they cloak something so nefarious into righteous sounding words, trusted bill. So we did the first image. They did their trusted bill for a day and a half, which was supposed to be a simple software update. And then we did another image, and when the cyber experts compared the two, they found out they had deleted these vital election records. Off there, there was software on there that shouldn't have been. These should just be scanners. They go in, they see where the bubbles are, they count up who they're for, and get you a total. But there's enough information, enough programming in there to run the space shuttle, which should not be. And you have to ask yourself, why is that? The second report that came out showed that there were 36 wireless devices. Well, I don't know about you, but I've always been told that these machines can not only not be connected to the internet, but that they do not have the capability to be connected to the internet. Well, I've been lied to, and we've all been lied to. There were 36 wireless devices capable of connecting to outside sources. And in fact, when they did the raid on my office, they informed everyone that that codes, that path codes, that only the Secretary of State and Dominion voting systems were supposed to have were discovered because of video that was taken in my elections room during the trusted bill. And I was surprised. I looked up and I saw wireless enabled on the screen, and I questioned on it, and I said, well, wait a minute, it says wireless enabled up there. And the Secretary of State person that was guided by the Dominion people said, yeah, that's right, we can access it, but you can't. And that just made me feel sick to my stomach, that someone would be able to access the system that I, as an elected clerk that is in charge of protecting the election records for my citizens, could be accessed without any of our knowledge. The third report, and this is one that will explain to you how they're actually doing it, how they're actually flipping the votes, if you want to call it that. So when you go in and you insert a ballot into, in our case, other people have PART, ES&S, we have Dominion voting systems. When you insert the ballot into the tabulator to tabulate to the vote, it takes an image of that ballot, so a picture, and it goes into the database. Database number 1 in this instance. There should only be one database. Database number 1 takes the image, then something nefarious happens. Within days, after about a third of the ballot have come in, those images are transferred to a second database. In the process, they have been, the voter intent has been changed. So those of you that have been election judges know that you can manually, if a ballot is kicked out to you for a Democrat and Republican representative judge to look at that ballot to determine the voter intent, if there's any question of it, you can actually change that ballot, right? So in this case, the machine is actually deciding who you're going to vote for, who that ballot is going to be counted for. And I tease people, I say, I might have voted for Biden. We don't know. So it's transferred over to the second database. So if you can imagine a bookie or a accountant that is not honest having two sets of books, one that's real and one that's not real, or that's been changed or fabricated, that's exactly what's happening. And the reason that we know when those set of ballots are transferred over to the second database is that they don't continue the SHA file, the SHA file, which is it's like a fingerprint. If you were to transfer the exact image from database number 1 to database number 2, it would maintain that identifier. Okay, those are all missing. So they can't be identified that those ballots were voted for that person. So that's how they're doing this part of it. So when you look at, and they told me that you have charts of how the election went, and you see that sharp spike upwards, and then it goes over, on the graph, and it doesn't, it never changes with the percentage of the distance between one campaign person to the other. What's happening is they have decided from the beginning with this method that they're using of who they want to be their person from the very beginning, and then it stays the same so no one else ever catches up. So you say, well, how can maybe then I just won't vote. I've heard people say that. No, you have to vote. You have to overwhelm the system and make sure that you're there, you're watching, that you get your CVR reports, your cast vote records, so that we can examine them, and that you ask for a recount. And I know that's what's going on there, and I applaud you for that. So in my case, when on election night on June 28th, Even the mainstream media like one. I was in the polls. I was 47% in a three-way race, and my other opponents hadn't even really campaigned at all. One was and is the director, one of the top directors of CTCL, Center for Tech and Civic Life. The other one is and also their secretary. That's the organization. If you've heard Justice Gableman speak of, that funneled 94% of $470 million through to counties that Biden won, and the other one was a man who was on the board of Obama. I'm hearing somebody in the background. Sorry. The Obama appointed Attorney General. So these people have been selected, not elected. So on that night, we looked and we said this is a report number 3 event. In fact, in one of our counties, we had someone that the staff went home at 10 o'clock at night. At 11:30, there were votes, about 900 votes that were switched from one candidate to the other. And then the next afternoon, after we made a big deal out of it, they were switched back. There was no one in the office to do that. So I'm going to right now. I paid the $250,000 recount. They ended up not doing the recount according to law, and so and I'm happy to talk with whoever in your county that's doing the recount. But according to our law, and then I'll finish with this and bring it up to questions. So in our county, in our state, it requires that if you're going to do a recount, there's a test that you do beforehand. And so the canvass board, not Dominion, who is actually giving the instructions on how to do this test and the recount, not the Secretary of State, clerk, not the election officials, the canvass board is supposed to, in our state, and yours may be similar, randomly select the tabulators that they want to test. So let's just say if you have 7 tabulators, they might pick number 1 and number 3, and say, okay, I want you to go get me those ballots that ran through those tabulators, and then recount them. So they sit there and they actually do a big hand recount. They count results. And then they compare them with the total that the machine said. They didn't do that. They did test ballots. They did not use the actual voter verified ballot. So we're fighting it in court because these people have been selected, not elected. We've been turned down now by the Colorado Supreme Court, and now we're going to the U.S. Supreme Court. Once we get a count of those ballots, it asks for in the statute, it asks for a hand recount of the whole state. It will prove for Colorado and for your state and for every other state that these machines are cheating the people, are cheating the voters. So I'm gonna stop there. I've given you a lot of information about what's going on with me. They have attacked every way they can. I have 7 felonies, 4 misdemeanors. Been accused of kicking a cop, which didn't happen, resisting arrest, which didn't happen. I had contusions on my wrist where they illegally handcuffed me, threw me in jail. My dad died that night I was in jail. I'm trying to be able to go back for his funeral. So far I've been denied any travel outside the state by these criminals. So, there's a price to pay, but it's worth it. They can't get us all, and everybody needs to stand up.
Joining our symposium, and we'll have 10 minutes of question and answer. We appreciate your inspiration because May and I did not wake up one morning deciding we want to do this. So anybody have questions? I'll bring you the mic. Questions for Tina?
Do we know when we're going to be going to the Supreme Court with this, with your case, everybody's case?
No,
She'd like to know when the Supreme Court case will be happening.
okay. So right now, we are needing attorneys to take it to the Supreme Court. We have so many attorneys. I have criminal defense, I have civil defense, I have recount attorneys, I have, you know, you name it. They even took my husband who was in a nursing home. And when I found out the next month, we would have been married for 36 years. These people, you know, there's opposition all around, but we do need good legal. So if you know of someone, we have people working on this. From the time that we were denied by the Supreme Court of Colorado, which is not surprising, by them, we have 30 days. So it's coming up. We were denied on the 12th of September. And barring any other activity that we need to do within Colorado, we need to have that filed here within the next couple weeks. So that's what's happening right now. So we're really busy with that.
Thank you. Any more questions, please? All right. Tim.
Hello, Tina. Thank you for all that you do. My name is Tim Sitzma. I currently am running for House District 46 in the Valley of East, Multnomah County. I was a volunteer poll watcher, not a paid poll watcher, but a volunteer poll watcher. And one of the areas that I watched was signature verification. And when we said, well, those signatures don't match, and we brought them up, some of them would just be a line across the page where obviously the voter card on file had a signature. We lost every single battle because when we brought them into signature verification, it was a hand-picked team from Multnomah County Elections that said, oh, well, it looks like it matches to us. How do we fight when we're observing an election, when we're on the front lines, when we're doing good work, when they're cheating right in front of us? How do we fight that?
You go to your DA and you go to your sheriff. You file for every time there's any kind of infraction like that. It is their duty to investigate the crime. So take it to law enforcement. Force them to investigate. And you know, here's something else too, that these signatures are so important, and anybody can get that file. You know, anybody can take a ballot envelope and emboss a signature on it. And did you know that the actual, what we used Runback, the Edtl machine, I don't know what you use there, but we found out that if a signature is too perfect, if it's perfect, then it will not kick it out. So think about how you get a perfect signature, right? You make a copy. So it's important that we know what's going on with these ballot envelopes. You know, we believe that the federal postal service is also involved. There's a lot of players in this game that they're running. But you speak up and you did the right thing, but then report it. Report it, take a screenshot of it, report it, make them stop right then. You are an election judge, right? You are an election judge, and they should be having always a Democrat and Republican there to approve these signatures. If there's any irregularities at all, you report it to law enforcement.
Thank you, Tina. You know, actually in our Clackamas County elections, they were not really vetted, and it was all in a hurry and emergency, so they threw a variety of people without any process, really. So it was, we don't know if there were ratios that were even of the Democrat and Republican in this Clackamas County primary. So we did experience that. Any other questions for Tina before she has to go? Okay.
Sometimes I hear about an election group and they're doing this and this one's doing canvassing. Like, okay, well maybe this is covered. What is some task that almost anyone can do? Like, okay, if you're an election poll watcher, you can do that. But is there something that you want to get involved, you want to do something, here's the thing you can do?
Yes. Okay, so first of all, for people, it's awareness. Most people are not aware of what's going on. And that's why I tell people, now that this movie is out, that you know, the reason this movie is so powerful is it's not just information. It's showing the personal side, it's showing the emotional side, it's funny in places, but it also sandwiches that in with facts and proof of how the election crimes are taking place in one area, which in that case is the machines. I would have parties at your home. You know, when you do barbecue, say, hey, we're going to have a movie watching night and we're going to discuss things afterwards. I would send it out on every social media, every Twitter account, any way that you can get people to watch the movie. When you go to places, when you go to events like this, there should not be an empty seat anywhere. You should have to have stadiums where you invite people, like what Trump does, where you invite people to get this information. Because when I went to church on Sunday, I realized God spoke to me and said, these people are asleep. My sheep are asleep. They have no idea the danger that's coming upon them and how close they are to having their republic taken away and their freedoms taken away. And I'll tell you, as someone that's been in jail, I'm a 67-year-old grandmother. It was not on my bucket list to be in jail, to be handcuffed several times, to be arrested, to have the FBI break into my home and stay there for 6 hours rummaging through my stuff. That's when it happens to just normal everyday citizens, it should sound the alarm that time is short. And so I would have an urgency about you to every single person's room to get this information out. This knowledge is power. To get this information to everyone. And I appreciate all of you that are here. Obviously you're faithful, you're doing things, you're at an election integrity event, but you need to widen your circle of influence. I liken it to network marketing, how they are able to multiply people. 10 people tell 10 people, those people tell, pretty soon you have multitudes. But that's what we need to do. That's probably the most important thing. And that way, it's not just a few people doing a lot. It can be a lot of people doing a little or a lot. So that would be the most important thing. We're coming up on this election. We need to have people out at the drop boxes. We've had people say that they will camp out, have little camp out parties, bring their truck camper or their tent or whatever and camp out at the drop boxes, keep an eye on things. Question what's going on in the nursing homes, how they're talking to the nursing home residents about, their votes. Of course, we found so many people that there was no way they could vote, that all of a sudden votes have come up. Get your past vote records. Make sure you get those. One thing that I did not realize until my eyes were open to a lot of stuff going on, they tell the clerks to not touch the election, the score data. Ours is called SCORE. Different states have different names for it, but it's the registration database. Not to touch that because before the election until the election is certified. And I always wondered that was kind of an odd thing, but the reason is because they're in there monkeying with the registration rolls, and we've seen that in other states and probably your state as well. They're in there inflating the voter rolls, voting for these people, and then taking them off, and so on and so forth. So those are things you need to be aware of. You need to be cognizant of. But show up. Be a judge. Be an election worker. Notify if there's any irregularities whatsoever. Go on and get educated. Go on Frank's speech and watch the videos on there. And so you're aware of how they do this, and then you can devise, proactive ways to let them know that they're on watch. After the election, when they took me out, it was a school board election, and we all knew they were going to cheat, but we put so much pressure on them that they said, well, we're going to run the ballots through, then we're going to hand count them. And so when they did, so I told the I told the school board candidates, I said, you have nothing to worry about during this election. because we're eyes. So just make sure they know that your eyes are on them, and demand that if there's any irregularities, demand that your clerk keeps the ballots from the 2020 election past the time that they're going to delete them. September 3rd was federally the time they could delete these ballots. Tell them because of your belief there was irregularities, you'd like for them to keep them longer. They can do that. They don't have to destroy them. There's no law that says they have to destroy them. There is a law that says they have to keep them for 22 months.
Excellent. Colleen, if we launch a drop box, what good is it going to do if they finagle the computers?
I say there's about 8 different ways they are cheating. That's one of them. So as many ways you can keep them from, and then of course getting all of our voters to vote. You know, like I said, there's people who say, well, why should I even vote if they're going to cheat? We've got to get out in mass numbers to overwhelm that. So Dropbox is just one way, but it is a way to keep them from inserting those ballots. Another thing is to let your post office know. What do you do with the ballots? What do you do with the return ballots? Where are they going? Ask those questions. Where are they going? Ask your clerk. Do you get the ballots that are undeliverable? What do you do with them? Make sure those ballots aren't out there floating around somewhere that they can be voted on. Accountability. Accountability as far as, this many ballots went back, this many were received and voted, where are the rest of them? Things like that, just an accounting. But yes, the drop box is a great place to keep them from stuffing the ballot boxes. But then when you have with the machines, getting your cast vote record is really important, because that shows how the ballots came in, what order they came in. And what we've been able to see in that regard is these ballots. Okay, so for instance, in my county, it's like 65-35, Republican, Democrat. Well, those first 2 reports show that it was 50-50. Well, that right there tells you they already stacked the deck for the other side, right? In that race, because they've given them an extra 15%, so to speak, to give them a boost. So things like that, if that's helpful. There's a lot of different, become educated. Read watch these movies that Frank Speech has on about the techniques that they're using, and then just do what you can to circumvent.
Thank you. Virginia has a question.
On which date should we ask for a CDR report?
Most clerks won't let you have them until the election has been certified. But I would say to any of your candidates that feel like their election was stolen, to make sure, if you get your CDR before that, but usually they will ask you to wait until all the ballots. In Colorado, it's 8 days until after the election that they cure all the ballots. All the ballots. Now they have this insidious thing called text to cure. Somebody was talking about the signatures and things like that. That should have been sent back to the voter to verify, a letter sent back to the voter to verify that was indeed his ballot that he had voted, and to send his ID saying, and then those 8 days after the election is when they cure this. Now they have a text to cure, which is another fraudulent way that they have. I don't know if it's federally, but in Colorado. But with everything that you can do as far as the cast vote records, getting those, if you can get them earlier, that's fine. You can get daily cast vote records. So you can ask your clerk, and I always publish these every day. I would have them posted. The days, how many ballots came in, and it says, how many for Democrat, how many for Republican, etc. That you could go get them every single day. Tell them that you want the cast vote record, you want the ballots that were run that day, the totals. Like I said, I posted them every single day for the citizens to see. When you come in, you know, how many have been, it'll tell you how many have come in, how many have been rejected, how many have been counted, and that sort of thing.
I have one more question. If I ask for a voter roll report on the day that the mailing is done, at what other date would I ask for another one in order to trap them and catch them after they inflated the rolls and they clear them up again?
I would get in touch with Cause for America. They are, you know, they're part of the Lindell team, so you can reach them on the Frank Speech or the Lindell TV website. There'll be a place where you can contact them, and they should have up their information that will help you with that sort of thing. So, you know, if there's any irregularities and things like that, but I would do that. I would contact Cause for America, and they have lots of suggestions.
I have two quick questions, if I may. My name is Bob Terry. First question is, I recently read where the U.S. Post Office has been directed by Congress to set up a special section to handle nothing but mail-in and mail ballots. Are you aware of such a thing as that?
You know, I mean, when you're talking about the federal government, the FBI, all these federal agencies, yeah, they are, they're trying to federalize our election. So I don't trust the post office. We've gotten reports from our canvassers on things like that they've put ballots to the side that they felt were undeliverable, or there's no real chain of custody. So when the ballot leaves the printer, there's really no chain of custody. They're delivered out. We don't know where they're delivered to, really. They're taken to the post office or sent back to the post office. I mean, talking about chain of custody, you know, there's really not one, except for when the ballot is voted. So once the ballot is voted and it comes to the clerk's office is when the biggest scrutiny needs to take place. The signature verification, making sure it's a real ballot. You know, you guys have probably heard of Joe Von Pulitzer and different people, cyber people that can look at a ballot and tell if it's real or not. But you know, as candidate for Secretary of State, I ran on watermark ballots. You know, our money is on anti-counterfeit paper. Why are our ballots on anti-counterfeit paper? You know, why are we using voter ID? Why are they going to all these links so that we can't have voter ID? So, you know, run for office. We need to get our elections squared away. But I don't trust any government agency right now. You know.
My final question or statement on that is, this article specifically said the post office and the federal government is setting up separate buildings, separate system through the U.S. Post Office to handle the mail. That's something you might want to be aware of and could check out. My other question is related to, if you recall, President Biden never really campaigned. He stayed in his basement. He went to 2 or 3 horn honking events where people were supposed to be there and like 14, 15 people show up, yet he wins the election. We've also seen that locally, where we have candidates who really don't campaign and maybe do a mailer, but maybe they do a speech here and there, but they really know very few signs out on the roads or anything like that. Is that a sign of something maybe amiss?
You know, here's the thing I would recommend, because I knew I had won the election as Secretary of State in Colorado. Some states have a threshold that you can't ask for a recount. Some of them have their law that says you can contest it within 5 days or a certain number of time. I would encourage your candidates to look at the law, find out what their recourse is, and to use it to their benefit. If you see anything like that, I mean, right now, we have finally, our city council candidates that are asking for a hand recount, and we think they're going to get it. Thank goodness the municipal elections aren't run by the Secretary of State, so they'll find those things. But I would look at your law, learn. Go to like in Colorado, ours is Title I. Just go through. It's very easy. If you go to LexisNexis.com and you can look for Oregon hot topics, then you should be able to look up the law yourself. It's very easy to do. It's great to know, and you can even do a search for recount and different things. It's a great education that will help all of you. You should be talking about it in your events and in your meetings that you have about this is what the law says. If this happens, this is what we're going to do. I think probably the theme for today, for me to you, is knowledge. Knowledge is power. Know what your resource is, what you can do.
I thought that was great. That Bob's actually my campaign manager. He's former commissioner, so he knows we worked like crazy, and the rest I figured they had in the bag.
Commissioners can get rid of those machines. They can refuse to fund them.
Yes.
I think we have time for one. Do we have time for one more? I know our agenda says we're a little over. Do you have time for one more? Tina?
Yeah. I'm sorry, say
Do you have time for one last question?
You bet. Anything for the people. Good.
We appreciate you and all you're doing. I would like to say that we know that the battle is in a different place than here on earth, right? We all know that. But how can we pray for you? How can we support you in the true battle that's actually going on when all this stuff that gets in the way and the confusion is happening? What's the best way for us to hold you up?
Thank you. Well, your prayers are much appreciated. Donations are appreciated to the cause. If folks can give to the Lindell Legal Offense Fund, he's a great patriot. He's already spent $35 million of his own money, his talent, treasure, and time. He's a great man. They have the FBI has taken his phone. They've taken Dr. Doug Frank's phone. There is a federal indictment that they're working on right now. I already have a state indictment against me, but there is a federal indictment, and I know that because these questionnaires have already gone out to potential jurors, and in that questionnaire, it talks about, if you get your opinion on if there are, how do you feel about something like prosecutable election offenses or something like that. Something that would give them an idea. Is this person going to, gonna help us go get this person, or is this person kind of like, I don't really care what happened. So they're handpicking these jurors for a federal grand jury, and they are going to try to prove that Mike Lindell, Dr. Doug Frank, and others, and because of me, because of what I did, which was entirely legal, but it has exposed their fraud. They want to take it down. So I appreciate it if you can help out there. Legally, we have Americans for America.com, which they're doing a lot of good work, and then my Tina Peters for Colorado.com website as well. Dealing with the recount, and we're going to continue the fight. We're going to continue after I get out of office, which is in 2 months. I'll be unemployed then, but I still want to continue the work moving forward. Thank you for your prayers and for your support.
Thank you, Tina. We so appreciate you, and as May and I move forward in our journey, we'll be gleaning strength from you as well, and we pray 1,000 blessings over you, that you keep revealing the truth, and we're with you in spirit. Thank you so much for your time. Our next speaker. With my partner, we are partners in the Justice League of Oregon, taking on this journey together. I appreciate her immensely. When I connected with her, that is when I knew that we had to take it to the limit and see what we could do to expose the truth. Mae Wong, she ran for Metro 2, and she's going to give you her presentation of basically what we feel is the case we have. So without further ado, Mae Wong.
Maybe I'll just put it here. Is that gonna be okay? Let me know if you can't hear me, then I'll speak a little or closer to the mic here. So, how did I get here? It actually all started off with the kids. I was thinking about what happened in the last few years and very concerned with what's happening in the country and then even locally. So we started off grassroots, going to all these rallies in front of the school board buildings, and they were not open to the public. They didn't want people to speak about what's going on in the classrooms. So from there, I actually looked at all of the elections that were coming up in the midterms for Oregon. In Oregon, the midterms for 2022, all of the House seats were up for election. 24, I think, out of the 26 were up for election. So I don't know if you guys knew, I went and I did charts so that we would know what Republicans, what Democrats were running for office, and then that would help people determine the landscape and then have as many candidates as possible that would represent the people. And we actually got a lot of candidates on the ballots now, and then we're hoping to help push them through into the November elections. So your vote actually really do count. So I hope that everybody gets out and vote. And the other thing is, people probably want to know, who is Mae Wong? And why did I run for office? I actually am a business owner. I'm a logistics consultant. And then I used to help with veterans. I help them to get their benefits. So I kind of know a little bit about the law and how to respond to the government. So that's where everything started for me. Just want to give you a background. My internet was out for 3 days prior to the 27th of May. So this is during my election. My internet was out. It was really hard for me to check and see what's going on with my race. So I took a screenshot. This is Friday. This is the Clackamas County tally for the day. My opponent had 26,000 so, and then I have 12,000 or so. This is actually the same total that's going to appear at 4:44 a.m. on May 29th. So we're saying that there's a whole day where they didn't count anything. So on May 29th, this is Memorial Sunday at 4:36 a.m. I don't know why, but maybe there's the divine providence that just said, hey, wake up and go and take these screenshots. So, okay, the votes changed. My opponent had 31,000, and I had 13,000. Okay. Then 8 minutes later, my opponent had 26,000 and I had 12. there's a decrease of 6,371 votes. What happened? Then that night, I took some more screenshots. My opponent, her votes went up to 33,000, mine went up to 14,000. There's an increase of 8,918 votes for that day. I think, was it 4 minutes later? 30,436 vote, and then 13,000 and change for me. It's a decrease of 3,855 votes. Wow. So that's kind of crazy, right? Votes going down. Then this is from the Clackamas website where they have a tally how many votes that they, do every day. So on Sunday, May 29th, Memorial Weekend, they said they counted 6,993 votes. But as you saw before, actually, the post from the screenshots, there were 8,918 votes counted on just my race. How does that work? There's 1,925 more votes counted in my race alone than what the county counted for the entire day. So interesting. So I did a little graph of how the votes went. And this is a combination of my opponent and mine, the numbers. And then it actually, so hers went down same time as mine went down. Interesting. And 4 times it happened during our race. 4 times. From May 28th all the way, actually May 29th, all the way to June 19th. There's another graph. I like graphs. I actually like taking photos too as well. You can tell. I have actually over 30 images, screenshots that I took. And some of them, actually they were by accident. At 4:30 in the morning, you would think, you would wake up and you're going, okay, this is too early for me. And then I accidentally took screenshots close together. It wasn't by accident. It wasn't like, oh, okay, I'm going to go and take it, and then I'm going to find something wrong here. But this is interesting. This will show kind of a funny thing that happens. So the top of the blue line is my opponent, her numbers, and then the bottom in the green line are my numbers. And they simultaneously go up and down together. How about that? And what I found was, I did the calculations. It's by 25% going up and down. My race as well as hers. So let's take, for example, 25%, let's just say for me, of 1,000. I gained 250 votes. 25% of 4,000, my opponent, she gains 1,000 votes. So as it goes, the increments of 25%, I will never win. That's just how that math works. I will never win. So that's okay. I just thought this was fun to see, this chart. And this is really interesting too. I found, here I'll point at this, that this percentage this is 3 separate days where I had it in yellow. The percentage between her, my opponent, and myself are all the same. How about that? Now, I mean, I can understand votes going up and down, whatever, I guess, whatever, but the percentages being the same. 70.37% over 29.2%. Think about that. Woo, are we getting somewhere? So, there were no changes. There's all sorts of funny, security issues that Clackamas County had. And so one of them was they uploaded the wrong numbers, about 600 votes, to the state's website. So they said that they're not going to upload any more numbers, tallies, to the state's website for 6 days. So that's what they did. But then it was really interesting, from June 10th to June 19th, there was an increase in votes. And after certification. And that was 821 votes. So we want to look at the tally machine system because actually the county clerk gave me some information. I had a nice conversation on the phone with her, and she told me a few things about the tally machine system, so I figured I'd share this with you as well. Clackamas County uses the HART system, and Multnomah and Washington County actually uses the clear ballot. And we saw, if there's people who witnessed for Washington County, the trial that was going on, that the clear ballot was having issues, it could be hacked, and then so could the HART system. And this is the HART system Clackamas County uses. This is a source code review of the HART system. And so it's done by Stanford University, Network Resonance, University of California, San Diego, and Rice University. This is the findings of the study. Unsecured network interfaces, vulnerability to malicious inputs, no or insecure use of cryptograph. They also found there's a failure to protect ballot secrecy. Attacks can be extremely hard to detect and correct, can be carried out in the field by a single individual without long-term access to the equipment. So as you know, that 60% of the ballots, the barcodes were faulty. So they had to go in there and change, take the original ballots and then mark new ballots so that it could be run through the tally system machines. Well, at one point, all of these people from the Secretary of State's office were in the Clackamas County office, and they were everywhere, including the private security room in the back where they upload, and they had their laptops, and they also had their cell phones with them inside these areas. So just saying. Can Oregon's election systems be hacked? Well, here's an article from the Associated Press, a week before the elections. It says that the Secretary of State is trying to protect the integrity of its online system, and this is where the campaign finance records were published after they found a ransomware attack. So, can it be hacked? And then the Washington County case. This is what the state attorney, State Attorney General, Ellen Rosenblum, in her motion says, even when the systems are not directly connected to the networks, they are vulnerable to attack through physical or wireless access. I mean, all this information is out there, really. What's on the ballots? Now, this is actually what's told to me by the county clerk. What's on the ballots? Clackamas County has 3 unique barcodes and identifiers. You think you have privacy during the elections. They all know who you are. So I put this in there because this is from the Clackamas County Clerk. She said the state determines the order for each candidate in the election. It selects a random alphabet, and that's where they start to count the candidate. So they go in and select, the state does it, select a random alphabet, and then they'll start counting the ballots by that particular candidate. And then they'll go through to the rest of the candidates. And then the barcode goes with the heart tally system, and there are 3 barcodes on each ballot. Ballots are counted in batches of 125. The first barcode determines which election. So in the primaries, there's a barcode for that. The second identifies which precinct, so they know where you live. The third is a unique identifying number for each ballot, so they know who you are and what you voted. To show you this, that there's positive proof, I have the image of the front ballot. There's a barcode on the left-hand side. On the back of the ballot, because it's front and back, there's a barcode on the left-hand side. On the PCP ballot, there's a barcode on the left-hand side. Those are all the same barcode. If you put them up side by side, it's the same barcode. So that is the unique identifier. So I didn't put more images of the ballots, like the bottom of the front of the ballot has the barcode that's similar to this. The bottom of the back of the ballot has a barcode that's similar to this. And what I did find was one of the barcodes didn't match on the back. It's on the bottom of the ballot. So that may be the reason why they say there are faulty barcodes and they had to redo the ballots. Here's an image of, it's actually kind of blurry, but when I scanned it in. Here's an image of the return envelope, by the way. And you know they did away with the security, the privacy envelope to the cover, because it's not necessary, it's identifiable. We found actually this number is unique to the voter, and then this is unique, I think, to the election. So this is the same as that. And then this number, actually highlighted in yellow, is a unique number to the voter itself.
So they know who you are.
Security issues at Clackamas County. For the primaries, this is what happened. A misprint of 60% of the ballots. Observers in the elections office prior to the office hours. Manually inputting wrong results to the Secretary of State's website. Votes changed during morning hours on the Secretary of State's website for the county. So I want to actually give people who are interested in the elections and what they can do for the future races is to look at some of the statutes. And these are the statutes that we found can be used in relation to filing a complaint. 254.074, County Election Security Plan submission of ballot information to the Secretary of State. You asked, well, the security plan, well, you know, hey, they probably did a good job. They submitted the security plan ahead of time, right? But all of these security issues, well, they didn't follow that plan too well then, right? So therefore you would have a reason to file that complaint. So that's the first one. 254.482, persons authorized to watch, reviewing, and counting of votes. Of course, we all know that what happened was they allowed people to go into the elections office prior to office hours, where they allowed one group and then the other group they didn't. And then there's actually a Democrat that filed a complaint against this with the state of what happened. Unfortunately, they didn't accept my complaint on the same issue. There's also a directive from the Secretary of State for post-audit elections, where you can challenge, or you can ask, you can file a complaint and then you can ask for a recount. And then this one is very interesting. 260.645, illegal acts relating to voting machines or vote tally system. Well, just because Clackamas County Clerk admitted that there were votes changed at the state website. And it had nothing to do with the Clackamas County website or the Clackamas County office, but the votes changed at 2 o'clock in the morning. She said that. And they don't know why. So what are the candidates' rights? These are statutes relating to the candidates' rights. 258.016, grounds for contest, persons authorized to contest. 258.161, filing demand for recount with the Secretary of State. 254.532, risk limiting audit, procedures, rules. 192.324, copies or inspection of public records, public body response, records requests. We submitted, well, we have people who submitted public records requests. There's about 4 of them. None of them were answered. Not even a reply. Let me know if I'm ready.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
2, 3 minutes.
How do you read the statutes? It's kind of daunting, right? You would look at, you would go, oh my goodness, how do I sort through all this? Well, this is a quick and easy way to do it. So the statutes are by categories. The conduct of elections, elections general provisions. These are all outlines of the provisions. So you just actually scroll down through the outline, like they just have one sentence. And then you go, okay, this doesn't pertain to what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. And then this one though, County Election Security Plan. Okay, I'm gonna go down to that one. So you would highlight it or you would just write down the number and then go down to it. As you can see, none of these actually, relate, sorry, like that. And then the voting part though, this relates to 254.482, persons authorized to watch receiving and counting of votes. Post-election procedures, we've got the risk limiting audit procedures rules. There are complaint filing deadlines. So people need to be aware of that or else you can lose your case. We found for the risk limiting audit, you have to file a complaint before certification. And then for 258161, filing demand for a recount with the Secretary of State, deadline for filing demand is the 35th and the 45th day after election. So Clackamas County is an unincorporated county, therefore they don't have a charter, and everything directs back to the state. So realistically, it's the state that has to do or authorize the recount. Okay, well actually this ends my part, where Dana will come up afterwards, and I think we're just going to follow the agenda and have some other speakers here. But thank you so much for listening to my journey and what's happened, and hopefully I can help give some good information to everyone.
Okay, our next speakers they formed a group, Citizens for Restoring Liberty. And Rod Taylor, he's actually a county commissioner candidate that won his primary. And Scott Brewster, they have been working together on some very, very interesting election issues that are going on down there. Some very questionable things that they've been tackling. So we are going to zoom into his opening speech about how they're taking their county back. And I believe Scott, are you starting? Scott is going to start. So without further ado, Scott Brewster will start.
Anyway, we're just sitting here right now. We are at Rod Taylor's rally here in Coos Bay. We have a couple hundred people here. We have the Endeavors playing. We have Maddie Niswander, who stood up against the county of Coos and fought for this county. We have her brother Kaiser here. We have my son Cannon down here, little guy. And we just wanted to tell you guys how much we wish we were there with you and how much we're doing to fight election integrity down here in Coos Bay. We have multiple lawsuits going. We just talked with our lawyer, Tyler Smith. There were 20 different...
Can you talk a little louder? Talk a little louder.
There was 20 different cases or charges that could have been brought. Tyler Smith looked at all of them and said, we only want the cases that are going to win and that are going to be rock solid. So out of those 20, 14 of them are rock solid charges where he is expected to jail time out of the commissioners and the county clerk. All right, so we are on the side of the Coos Bay dock right here. We're having a huge party, 200 to 300 people here for Rod Taylor. Rod's running for commissioner down here. We monitored our 2022 primary, and we found tremendous amounts of, let's just call them anomalies. So we actually are coming out with a documentary that's going to hit October 15th. It's going to be produced by producer Elizabeth Scott, who is the founder of Steel Truth, and it is going to be a Dinesh D'Souza style 2,000 mules quality documentary that's going to showcase Coos County, Oregon, people like Danny Hindman-Allen, Dr. Frank, Seth Cashcole, Marc Thielman, Steve Jonkis, everybody who's in the fight is going to be in this, and it's going to expose election fraud not only in our county, but throughout the whole state. And it's going to rock the state when this thing comes out. I want you guys to, we all need to have watching parties because it is going to be phenomenal. This is going to be a bipartisan film that's coming out about election fraud that has a lot of Democrats that when we showed them the information and evidence that we had, they were blown away and they wanted to get on board and participate. So what it takes is it takes us being involved in our government again. And when they say we the people, it doesn't mean that we sit down and we hold them accountable. What that means is we're involved in our system and we're involved in our process. We're actually involved in our elections again. We actually go in and work for the county clerk. We go in and we run and we get on school boards. We run and we become mayors of towns, city councils, even if it's PTA or Chamber of Commerce. We can't forget that we the people means we are involved in our government. And it's been too long that we've let this go. Now, at what point, if we leave $10,000 on a table and it gets stolen from us, is it our fault that we left the $10,000 on the table? So I just want everybody there to know that there's tremendous amount of momentum in the state. The momentum I see for Christine Drazen as well is good. The Democrats that I was actually talking to, they told me they are not going to be voting for Tina Kotek. They're going to be voting for Drazen because too long of party rule of one party, and they're saying that it's becoming too lopsided and tyrannical. So once again, I'm going to say this: we have a lawyer, Tyler Smith. He took our case on, said that it was a great case. We gave him the 25 complaints or charges that we had. He said, I don't want to deal with 25 charges. I would really like to get down to what I'm going to be able to sink my teeth in and what we can win on. So he narrowed those down to 14 charges that he is saying is completely rock solid that cannot be beat. So we have 14 charges that are going to go against the county of Coos. And what he's telling me is these charges are the penalty for these charges are potentially jail time. And we are set with 2 different cases here. And it's going to be amazing once this comes out. So I want to introduce right now, you guys, this is Rod Taylor, my partner with Citizens Restoring Liberty. We started this group together. He's the one that's running for commissioner against Melissa Crimmins. The amount of fraud that we have found in the commissioner's offices and in our county is tremendous. They're working with the sheriffs, they're working with everybody. It's the private businesses that donate, we're working with them. So what we have found is the private businesses donate to Melissa Crimmins, our current commissioner. Our current commissioner is the lawyer for the tribe down here. She is then going to give the tribe 70,000 acres so they can log on, and then Roseburg Forest Products is the one that gets to go in there and log in that area with no restrictions, because once the tribe owns it, you don't have to follow the normal restrictions. And Roseburg Forest Products is then the one that donates the money to Cribbins. So we've caught them full circle doing things like this, which is tremendous amount of corruption in my opinion. So let me get my computer analyst on right now, and then we'll go to Rod Taylor. This is Marty. If you could just give a quick update on the anomalies that we found in the election, Marty, and you are on the cyber symposium right now.
Wow, that's a good one. So anyway, what do you want me to talk about? Basically, we had, for instance, in the primary election, we had probably about 25% of the people that got their ballots did not get the ballots for their proper party. They got NAV ballots, which means since it was a primary to pick somebody from your party, they could not vote for, if they were a Republican and they got changed to NAV, they could no longer vote for Republican. When they went to the county clerk to get a replacement ballot, they told they couldn't get a replacement ballot. The other thing that came up during the primary was I ran the list of every single voter registered in Coos County into the United States Postal Service database and found that 2,630 people had invalid addresses, so therefore they could not receive a ballot from the United States Postal Service. Yet when I asked Dee Murphy how many ballots they got returned for invalid addresses, it was only 1,600. So there's a difference of over 700 ballots that just disappeared somewhere. So there's that. So anything else?
If you have one more thing, then we go to Rod Taylor.
That's about it for now. I'm going to do something else.
Thank you, Marty. Here's Rod Taylor. Hey guys, how's it going, everybody?
Hi, Rod.
Nice to be seen. Looks like a nice function you got going on there. So we're out here on the Coos Bay Boardwalk, having a campaign rally, some live bands, or a live band, and a bunch of barbecue and all that. I'm wearing my 10-gallon hat, and that always looks like a party. So we are primarily concerned here in Coos County. The ones who are really awake and aware of what's going on.
Rod, can you just hold still because there's a lot of feedback when there's a lot of moving around? Is that okay?
Okay, yeah. All right, so how's my audio right now?
It's good.
Is it good? Right, I guess that's good. So, yeah, as Marty was talking about, we've got numerous anomalies in our elections here in Coos County. And, those include phantom voters that we've located, missing extra ballots that went out to those phantom voters. We've got a county clerk that was appointed by commissioners that we're going to be sitting for election in just a couple months beyond that, who was the former chair of the Coos County Democrat Party. We have the former county clerk resigning 1 week after we submitted a FOIA for our adjudicated ballots imaging, and all of these things. I mean, that's only the tip of the iceberg, those topics right there. But the people around this county who are aware of these issues, and even people who are not aware of these issues, the preponderance of people here are interested in returning to an in-person vote on paper with ID and hand counted on one day. One of my first objectives as a county commissioner will be to place a county ordinance on the ballot to exactly that effect. That is exactly the kind of election that we're going to have in Coos County. I don't care what Shavia Fagan says. This is Coos County. This is not Salem. So that's what we're going to do here in Coos County. We're also going to restore local control to our salmon policy, which ODF&W has completely destroyed. We used to have legendary salmon runs here on the South Coast, and we don't have them anymore because of failed ODF&W policies, the elimination of hatch boxes in all our rivers, and they tried to take over the whole hatchery program, and they messed it up royally. They messed up our timber management policy. That's also the federal government, Bureau of Land Management, messing up our timber management. We're going to take back those issues at the local level. Our planning and zoning regulations are descendant from Agenda 2030, and that agenda has impacted the thinking of our planning and zoning people, and as a commissioner, I'm going to take it back from them.
That's not two ways.
and the grounding course.
And then I don't know,
They froze, so.
well, they're at the coast, at the wharf, and so
Yeah.
they're getting a lot of feedback from the wind that's going over there. And so that's something we can't help.
Yeah.
Your connection between here and there too can be.
I think that's,
We lost them.
we lost that. I think with the feedback, we'll call it good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
I
we'll
think-
call it good.
Pardon me?
Can you call them?
Yeah, I could call them back if we want, it's just the feedback is really hard for everybody to do.
I'm going to talk to the phone, the mic to the phone might be better.
Randy, do you have my phone? Thank you, guys. Tech is always a little challenge.
Here, I'll take that out of there, that's fine.
Yeah, let's take that off so I can.
Oh,
They're back. Okay, Rod, we have just a couple minutes for some questions. I can't really do the microphone, so. So if you have a question now, let's start with election integrity issues and we're working on. Says you're doing a wonderful job.
I hear you.
Thank you.
You say, I was behind you saying, yes, yes, yes. Keep going, don't give up. You're doing a great job and you're a wonderful incentive for the rest of us.
Sounds as if you have a feedback loop inside.
You guys, we're pleased to be in alliance with everybody down there in Coos because, you know, what happens in one county, if you guys continue and you're successful to get elected and can change these things, it's gonna have a ripple effect all throughout the state. Any other questions for Ron or Scott?
One more statement.
What's the date that you'll know something about your current lawsuit?
October 8th is one of them, and then we don't know the second one yet.
Okay, great. Any other questions? When's the film gonna be out? When is the documentary gonna be out? May and I are really pleased that you interviewed us.
From anywhere from October 15th to October 20th.
Excellent. And here's Chuck.
Is the relief you're seeking going to shut down the use of the machines in time for the November election? Are you asking the court to do that in your county?
Is the relief that you're seeking going to shut down the machines or put an injunction on the machines before 2022?
We don't know if we can get that done, but can you speak to the machines real quick and what they are?
Oh, yeah, well, so in Coos County, we have clear ballot machines. And those are the tabulation machines, and I guess a number of counties in Oregon have clear ballot. And they are not certified, they're in fact not even certifiable. And we discovered this subsequent to our original FOIA request, which was in October of 21, just a year ago, when we asked for the adjudicated ballot images. There were over 3,000 of them, 10 times normal here in Coos County, and we thought it was curious. So that's when the county clerk resigned, and we thought it was over the adjudicated ballots not being available in violation of US and Oregon law. But in fact, it appears that maybe the problem really was our secondary request for the certification records on those tabulation machines. They were not able to provide those records because the machines are in fact not even certifiable, and the company that was supposed to be certified didn't have a certificate anyway. So it's all a complete disaster as far as elections here in Coos County. Does that answer the question?
Rod, can you explain what adjudication means for those that might be new to this?
I didn't understand.
Would you explain what adjudicated, you said there were more adjudicated ballots than normal. Can you explain adjudicated to those that are just new to this?
Yes, so when a paper ballot is run through the tabulation scanner, it is converted into an electronic image. And that image is what goes into the vote record. So when the ballot goes through, it either is a clean read and it goes into the regular ballot image file, or it's not a clean read. The machine cannot discern one or more questions, and so it goes into the adjudicated ballot image file, and that's where a human being has to go in and review those image files and determine voter intent, or perhaps invent voter intent. What really happens? We don't really know, but that's what an adjudicated ballot is.
Perfect. Does anybody else have a question regarding their lawsuits or anything otherwise?
You said 25% of the voters got the wrong ballot because their party was changed. How did you determine who had their party changed?
I didn't understand.
I'll answer that. Here's two parts. I got Marty with me here. Number one part is we found a numbering system on the outside of the ballots, and the numbering system coincided with your party. So it was 1 for Democrat, 2 for Republican, 3 for Independent, and 4 for non-affiliated voter. Now what we did is a lot of us had our ballot party affiliation changed prior to the vote, and when we got our ballots, we found out, like I did, I was no longer a Republican, I was now a non-affiliated voter. So what we did is we went to the fair and we've done polls, and we've also, just man on the street interviews and polls. From what we come up with, it was 25 to 30% of the people we polled have this happen. So if you guys don't know how to get the polls or how to get the information, you can do it yourself. Go to the fair and just conduct man on the street interviews and get that information. Marty can probably also add to that.
What, about the adjudicated ballots?
So
or
about the switching of the party affiliation.
Oh yeah, switching the party affiliation. Yeah, that was essentially a lot of people were interviewed at the fair, and a number of people at some of the meetings we went to said, hey, I used to be a Republican, and when I went to go vote, it showed up as NAV, and then I went to the clerk and tried to get a proper ballot, and they couldn't give me one. So, but at the fair, and this is not, an official poll, this is just talking to people and asking them, did your party change? And they said yes, and we said, okay, what to? And they said, pretty much all of them said it got changed to NAV, which means for a primary race, the ballot that you get is determined by what party preference you are registered at the time they mail the ballot to you. So the thing is if you're a Republican, you can't, and you're changed to NAV, you cannot vote for any of the Republican candidates because it won't be on your ballot.
So essentially, it's good to do a checkup. Maybe we can encourage everyone to do a checkup to see where you're registered. Ask a few friends, do a checkup before the general election. We have another question here.
I'm Kathy Cooper. I'm in Columbia County. I'm on the Cause of America chat every other Friday. Cause of America is Mike Lindell's group, basically, that's helping states, and this is specific to Oregon State. And I'm just wondering if you guys have someone who would be on that call with us, and we could share information from each county about what's going on. Because I feel like in Oregon, the counties aren't talking to each other enough, and I barely know what you guys are doing down there, and you probably have no idea what I'm doing up here, which isn't as much as you're doing, but I do what I can. So do you have someone that could be on that call, or do you know about that call?
Yeah, we'd be happy to be on that call. We are working with Dr. Frank and Seth Keschel, who also work with Mike Lindell. I think when this documentary comes out, you're going to see it everywhere. I mean, it'll be in Gateway Pundit. It'll be down with the people in Arizona. It'll also be on Frank's speech and things like that. So it's we're happy to help in any way that we can. Our main objective is for you guys to go monitor your elections. Whatever county you're in, get 20, 30, 40 people together, sign up to be ballot watchers to watch the signatures and also watch the count, sit at ballot drop boxes, and the last thing is put your ballot in the very last day.
And don't put your ballot in the mail, always put it in a drop box. I have one other thing to add to that, and that is we need not only volunteer observers, but we need people who have the time to go and apply for those temporary seasonal jobs that are actually paid positions in the clerk's office where you're actually hands-on involved in the process, not just restricted to a chair to keep your mouth shut and watch what they permit you to see. We need people actually involved. And this is the week to do that. This is the time. The clerk's offices are hiring right now, and this is the time to do it in your county.
And then also take pictures of everything going on. If you see people entering the building, leaving the building, take video, take pictures, monitor that election site at night. Have election parties at the county clerk's office. Go to the county clerk's office on election night and have a party there. Don't go have it far away at some bar. Have it right at the county clerk's office. Invite 600 people. Show them that we the people care about our elections again.
Barbecue in County offices. Yes, we have another question for you.
Hi, where on the ballot is the number that says your party affiliation?
Where are the ballot numbers? The party affiliation.
Oh, okay. On the last set of ballots that were sent out, my thumb's covering the camera. That's probably a better picture than my face. But anyway, the last set of ballot envelopes that we looked at were for the primary. On the primary, it has not only your voter ID number and your ballot ID number, but it also has your precinct number. And then in a larger font, set off just a little bit to the upper right of those numbers, is a big 01, 02, 03, or 04, which basically, you know, they thought it was innocuous. They thought we wouldn't figure it out. Well, we figured it out because I actually went into the county courthouse, they keep all the ballots. And so I went through a whole plat of ballots and went through 133 of them and looked up the voter ID and looked up what their party preference was, and 100% of those two-digit numbers, the 01, 02, 3, and 4, corresponded to their party preference. So we weren't just making a guess. We actually went and looked at all the ballot envelopes, not all of them, 133, because we were only given an hour. So we looked through it, we looked up the voter, we looked up their affiliation, and confirmed that the number on the ballot matched their party preference. And as an aside, I'm already a member of Cause of America. I've been going to some of their online meetings, but the more the merrier, so.
Excellent. Do you have another question?
A quick comment. As Secretary of the Constitution Party, I've had lots of people had to change their registration and then check it. And it turns out that many of those people, when they registered online to change their party affiliation, afterwards checked and got something different. One had to register 5 times before the recorded party matched the party they signed up for. So this is something you should do regularly and often, is go check your own registration and find out what it really says, because it might have been changed underneath.
We have time for. Go ahead, you want to respond to that?
Could you just explain that again, Dana?
Yeah, he basically said to go in and check your registration regularly.
Yes.
Like I mentioned, you have to do a checkup and tell people to see where you're at. Tell 10 people that you know, hey, make sure you're registered right. I think it's just an awareness that we need to bring out, that this is one of the methodology that is being used against us is flipping your registration.
Yeah, 100%. You need to be checking your registration at all times. Every year, every couple months, you need to do that. And then also, like I can't stress enough, you guys have to be involved in your elections. And if you physically can't be involved, then fire up your grandkids, fire up your children, fire up your grandparents, and get them involved. Because if we, the people, are not involved in our government, they're going to take it from us. And that's what we've seen across the board. They had a meeting today talking about election integrity in Coos County from the county clerk. This is the first time they've ever done that in history, had a meeting. They called us wacko, fringe, conspiracy theorists in the meeting. So we are the wackos. The hundreds and thousands of people in this county that want fair elections are crazy. And they also said there's not been one piece of evidence in the last 40 years in Coos-based election cycle. Well, I mean, how could that even be true? Like Dr. Frank said, with what we just saw in the Washington County election, she said for 30 years there was not voter fraud. Well, I think Tim Simple and what he has is going to prove that wrong.
Hello, this is Stan Satter. I'm the chair of Election Integrity for Clackamas County. I just wanted to give Janice Dysinger and I had a booth at the Clackamas County Fair, and we went and were specifically checking, and we used checking voter, just their status. And we used a website called voterev.com. You guys might want to write that down because that's way you can go in and check that party affiliation, you check your address, check everything there, check your voting history too to see if you voted in the last 5 elections. And we found a number of anomalies doing that too. So I would recommend everyone here go to their and ask their friends to go to that website and check your voter registration to make sure that nothing funny is going on. It's called voterev.com. It's called VOTEREF.com.
Yeah, that website that gentleman just talked about can also be used to look up addresses and see how many people voted at that address. So if you actually go on Vote Ref and go to your local homeless shelter or old folks' homes, you can see how many people are registered there. We found over 500 people registered at our local homeless shelter. So Vote Ref is a good place to go to. There's also another one called Votify Now, and what that does is that's an election day website where you can actually monitor the elections on election day. And if you guys see anomalies, you can go ahead and send the anomalies through votifynow.com. It's like a huge text message service, and everybody can be in contact with each other. So yes, use all the tools that have been built, you guys. I mean, it's going to take us doing it. Everybody in there, each one of you can make a difference. I'm telling you right now, each one of you can make a difference. I don't care how young, how old. This is it. This is the fight for our country right here.
Okay, so, oh, is it me? Yeah. Oh, I got feedback. Anyway, so in Washington County, Sandra Nelson is running for state representative, House District 27. And anyway, she has made these little things, they're sitting on the table over there, but there's some instructions here. It says it has a whole bunch of stuff. When you open it up, you see this, and the bottom one shows where to go and how to check your vote to see what you're registered as. So it's just another site, and there's other information on here too. I suggest that these are really helpful, and they can be left on the doorstep of people's homes.
Thank you, Janet. And also I want to acknowledge John Masterman is running for office, and I really appreciate all the people that are going into the general that are here and educating themselves, because these are the future legislatures, and being able to cheat sheet things, close the gaps and the loopholes. So appreciate it. One other question we're running on. I wanted to say they closed up. We just got notice here. They closed the temporary workers. It's the application process is closed for Clackamas County. Okay, Oregon audit for Coos County, and then auditoregon.com, and they're posting a curious case for Coos County. That's what you just wanted to say.
Yeah, that's put out by us. You have number 1 and number 2 of that. There's also a third part that's coming, and probably a fourth. A lot of the things that are in that are going to be in our documentary, but our documentary is also going to have people like Seth and Dr. Frank, and also a lot of whistleblowers throughout the county that are going to expose much more than just this election, but prior elections as well. So I do want to tell you, I just text messaged Dana Hindman-Allen and May Wong. Thank you both so much. And I did send them the ballots that have the numbering system on the outside. It's the 2 and the 4, so you guys can check that out.
Excellent.
I just want to say that clear ballot systems, how they mark the envelopes and the ballots, is different than the Heart system. So when they send out the ballots to people, and some of the information that you're getting is different than, for example, for Clackamas County, because they have used a different system. One's barcode, one's QR code.
Okay, we have one last question. Scott, are you still with us?
Okay.
Hi, Trudy. Could you repeat, after we were talking about voterev.com, we said another slide. Can you repeat that, please? The report, the route, I can't remember what it was called. The problems, report problems.
I'll let you know about Votify.
Yeah, it's an app, and it's called Votify Now. It's put out there by a guy named Johnny Vieira. He's heavy in the Arizona election situation. The girl that I'm working with, producer Liz, is friends with Carrie Lake. And so all the stuff we're seeing happen here in Coos, they're seeing happen there with Carrie Lake. Carrie Lake is monitoring her election, you guys, heavily. They know everything that's going to happen. They were just about to steal that election from Carrie, and they caught it at the last minute. And they decided to not go along with the steal because of the information that Carrie Lake had. So we have to work state by state. The Votify Now app is what I was talking about. But you know, Dana Hindman-Allen and May Wong are heroes. And thank you to Steve Jonkis and Marc Thielman for stepping up and taking back our country. And it's going to take all of us, because Dana can't do it by herself, and neither can May. And please, you guys, donate everything you can to these girls, because they're the real deal. I remember the first day they came to us, and now look at them. They're putting on Cyber Symposiums. These girls are heroes in my book.
Thank you. You guys are doing a great job too. It takes all of us, every one of us, takes a team. Well, thank you for your time, and we'll let you guys get back to your celebration.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
God bless you.
God bless you too. Okay, well, I just want to say there's a lot of people that have laid a lot of tracks, and a lot of people that are involved in the fight. It takes one step and one layer of awareness that reveals another level of awareness. So all the people that have gone before any of us that have started to raise the alarm, I just want to acknowledge, because it builds on each other, just like 60s music built on 70s and 80s. So it's kind of like finding out the truth about the elections is we're building upon everything that's been discovered. And we really do need to acknowledge that when it's not looking right, and they are working very hard to stop us from getting to the bottom of things, you need to know that it's because they don't want you to get to the bottom of it. We have to be cognizant of that. So she laid out the first aspect of what we feel is our case. And I'm going to give you kind of the communication. She had her own set of communication, but I'm going to give you my communication and what I was taken through by our public officials that are so hard at work for us. So, onward and upward.
Let me turn it on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so complaints filed to the state. This is the beginning of the communications journey and kind of the psychology of the whole situation when you're trying to hold government officials accountable. So this is the chain of events that happened. 4 candidates filed a complaint with the state, and I do want to acknowledge that the Democrat did file a complaint for Jamie McLeod Skinner for people in the observation room prior to the hours of operation. I filed a complaint, May filed a complaint, Steve Frost, who ran for commissioner position 2, and Dan Tews, who ran for a representative position, a state rep position. So May and I continued the correspondence with the county elections office. All of us initially filed with the state, and then we took it down the tracks to try to get to the bottom of it. Because as I told you, we connected, and Ben Edtl actually said, talk to May. See what happens when people tell you to connect to one another? Good things happen. So when I met May, I was like, we can't let this stand, because I just felt in my gut something was wrong with the county elections. It just, the whole thing, when you're in it, running for office, you know the effort, you know the time and the energy each candidate that's running puts in, and then you see the results come out, and hey, if I'm not going to win, I want to win, or I want to not win and feel like it was straight and honest. Okay, but when there's all these conundrums and these anomalies, you're going, something feels odd. Well, that's when May came into my life, and she said, well, yeah, things are wrong. And I said, we gotta go, we gotta check this out. We have to, it's our moral, ethical duty. So, June 8th, duration of county correspondence was June 8th to July 28th. That's a long time to be shuffling around with, trying to get to the bottom of things. I want to say, the reason I put this up here is because psychological tactics are a thing. When people are not being honest and they're hiding things, they're going to use psychological tactics on you so that you don't believe what you really see. Kind of like an abusive relationship. You didn't really see that. You didn't really, it's the same thing when people are trying to hide. So it quickly became a contest of how many hoops we could be put through to wear us out, to just really make us go away. It felt like a game of chess, only our way of life depends on honest elections. It's that serious. It's like fighting the results instead of getting to the root. State and county responses are designed, what I felt and May felt, are designed to discourage further inquiries. This is the timeline of the communications. The initial formal state complaint was on 6/20/2022. Requested a hand recount of the original ballots, not duplicated, and investigation on the screenshots. The screenshots are blatant. You saw what May laid out. I mean, they clearly show that there's manipulation going on multiple times after certification. So essentially, the recount process, for those that don't remember, it was they took original ballots and they transferred it onto new. There was not a lot of vetting process that went on. It was an emergency, This government's getting really good at that. Create an emergency, look over here, don't look over here, there's a distraction, boom, 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 and then they keep marching on with their plan behind the surface. Okay, so that's what we asked clearly on every heading of every email, clear as a bell. State investigations and legal specialist at the state responded 6/24/22 to the initial state violation. He refused to acknowledge the screenshots, dodged it in any of the communications, directed me back to the county, said he will not investigate complaints, no further replies to the phone calls or emails from me. After a formal complaint, mind you, 4 formal complaints, just to kind of keep you tracking on it. Called Clackamas County election on 6/24/2022 and 6/27/2022. Left messages for the Clackamas County elections clerk to call me, following up with the complaint and request, because they were copied on all the original communications, the formal state communication. I copied everybody, same with me. On 6/27, emailed elections office sending copies of state correspondence, even though I had already copied them on everything. They said, oh, well, sometimes we don't see this here and there, that kind of deal. I already copied them on all communications, but they requested copies again. So here comes the hoops. On 6/30, I spoke extensively with the county elections manager. Election manager assured me that they log into the state website. This is a crucial piece. And she was the only person that accesses the machine, and she wasn't there Sunday, 4:30 a.m. on Memorial Weekend. So nobody was there at the county manually inputting. That was when the first screenshot was taken. They input the tallies daily each day and push submit. I mean, it was down to the T verbatim what I was told. Every approximate 12 hours, it was told that the state logs in their system and pushes refresh. And then the new numbers are visible so all of us can see, the public. So, in essence, the state does not do anything with the numbers. Just remember that. They were perplexed on how the numbers were going down at the state since they have nothing to do with them. They originate at the county. Still no push for investigation. Okay? So just to backtrack, state does nothing, county handles inputting. All it is a refresh process for the numbers that are put in. 6:30, election manager sends out a sample of state-directed 10% audit. At this point, they were trying to placate us and pacify us. They wanted to say, there's a 10% audit, and I was actually told, as I will say, approximate 10% audit was done. Many PCP races were included. We're talking a lot. That is nothing to do with even the audit of the actual election. I mean, PCPs are elected, but it's not the main frame that we're asking for on every heading. And your race wasn't even in it. Very small sample compared to the request. The Clackamas County clerk told me in an earlier phone call that 95% of my Clackamas County race, commissioner race, was counted. Well, it turns out it was really just 10% in most PCPs. This was not the case with further inquiry. So the state directed the 10% audit, 3 multi-candidate races, 3 single-candidate races, and the rest are PCPs. So there were 225 total batches that were counted, and it goes down and follows Commissioner 2 position, the 11,695, 99,628 votes received. We've got the write-ins, the 14%, the over and under, 11.74 votes recounted, minus 14%, write-in, over and under is about 10%. Okay, so only 11,695 were recounted out of a huge amount, almost 100,000. My race was Commissioner 5, 11,695 recounted, 97,292 votes received, 16% write-in, over and under votes. By the way, there were a lot of over and under votes in this race. 12.2% votes recounted minus the 16% write-in, over and under is actually under 10%, a little bit, 9%. So very small sampling to hopefully make us stop the inquiry.
What are over and under votes?
The over votes are when people, so with the under are when they don't mark anything. And then the over is when it's, they have to,
They mark more than one.
They mark more than one vote, okay? So on 7/6, 2 other requests to Clackamas County for recount and investigation. So we did the state, copied it, the county on the state, then the county election managers instructed me to send another formal complaint complaint letter in addition to the state one that's already sent. She said that's protocol. So I sent the state, and then the county asked me to do another one with the same repeat information and sign it. Shortly thereafter, election clerk told me I needed to send a complaint on a public records request, which I immediately did the same day, which was like, whoa, thought this would make everybody go away. So anyway, did that, and actually they gave 2 different information. She was not asked to do it on a separate one. So there's very inconsistent protocol, depending who's asking. Third request for recount investigation. So Clackamas County on 7/8, elections clerk acknowledges the public record request submitted for hand recount of original not duplicated ballots. So I have all the emails and how it was validated. Every step of the way, the protocol was instructed, was verified the whole way in that long duration. On 7/8, the elections clerk acknowledges public records request form for hand recount of the original not duplicated ballots. There's a lot of communication going on about recounting the election. Do you think they want to do it? 7/18. Left a message for investigations and legal specialists to reconsider and call me, because by this time, I'm going, okay, this sounds wrong here, because this is totally a game of cat and mouse here. No return communications from phone or my email after initial response from my letter of complaint. I said, I highly suggest you reconsider not doing an investigation on the screenshots. I mentioned that in my email after the initial complaint to the state. On 7/21, spoke with county elections clerk regarding the quote for the recount. By the way, we were told we were going to get a quote for the recount multiple times. After explicitly giving instructions on how to request everything in writing, which was completed to the state, formal letter, and county, and public records request, so 3 times. Not to mention on every heading on every email. Clackamas County Elections Clerk said it would be expensive to recount, and I said, well, we'll be the judge of that. Just give us the quote. They weren't ready for this kind of inquiry. I'm going to tell you that right now. Clackamas Elections Clerk said, I can go to court if I'm not satisfied with the process. So first of all, there is no process going on here. There's basically stonewalling it, yeah. And so I'm thinking, okay, so I can go to court. So you want me to go to court for you to do your job. Interesting. Clackamas Elections Clerk directed me back to the state. So I want to highlight this. After all the communications, Clackamas Elections Clerk directed me back to the state. So you see the circular deal. We're getting run around in a circle. Okay? This is not particular to a person. This is a policy, and this is a business decision that the person that's elected to represent the people are making. And if they happen to be called out, well, that's their choices for the decisions they make. On 7/25, emailed, oops, I forgot to take that name off, elections clerk of the county, followed up with the clerk regarding the estimate for the recount. She said she would have it to me multiple times the week before, told me multiple times. Said I would have it the following week. Called on 7/25, called the Secretary of State Legal Program Manager, because by this time the state sent me to the county. County's now sent me back to the state. So I went over that person's head to the legal program manager. By the way, none of them know each other. That was according to somebody. Discuss the status of the complaints that were filed requesting the investigation into the screenshots. I challenged the elections program manager that the votes going down poses a security issue after she proceeded to me that it doesn't violate a statute. And I said, I contraire, I think it does violate a statute. I asked her if the state handles any input of the daily numbers. Election program manager said she didn't know and this gentleman would call me. Forgot to omit that name. Refused to give me his direct line or email, only general email that I might get lost in and general phone number. So refused to give me direct access. No return call from either of them, and that's supposedly the supervisor of the legal specialist. I don't think that's very professional. I'm a business owner. It's not a professional way of dealing with your constituents. But we do have a fourth branch of government that we have to contend with. The bureaucracy and the administration needs to be held in check. So then, this is what I was told at the very end. All of a sudden, after all that, we needed a Form SEL 800 demand of recount for president and vice president. That was what I was told. That's what the definition is. It's literally for supplemental demand for recount of a presidential and vice presidential candidates, 5% of precincts. It's not even related. 7/27, received email from Clackamas Elections manager. Letter stating I had not followed the protocol for demanding a recount, even though I had validation, instruction, acknowledgement from the county elections office every step of the way. That suddenly I didn't follow protocol, but I was validated the whole way. I was actually led the whole way. I'm not an expert in this. I haven't had to file a complaint for elections first time I ran for office. Isn't that nice how they're treating first-time candidates? 728. Wrote the final letter to the county elections manager, and it was juicy. And it recounted, explicit recount of all the events starting from 620 through 728. I want to state that in that final letter I wrote, it was to the point, it was firm, I was not happy, but everything we did with the state and the county was professional, diplomatic, all the way to the T. We asked for protocol. We were not vicious in any way, but at some point we got a little bit to the point. Final letter content from the elections manager. This is an excerpt of that email or the letter that I sent, my final recap of events, all the communications, and kind of the highlights. Demand for recount, this is what she said. A demand for recount is not a public records request. Mind you, I was told to put all of the complaint on a records request. ORS 1258161 lays out the process for demanding a recount. They were laying out the process, and this is not the process. Demand for recount that is to be turned into the state elections division, not a county clerk's office, with a deposit by the deadlines listed in the form. They're trying to take us back through they're trying to take us over the deadline. Run us through hoops, throw us through a deadline. But we did everything on time, mind you. SEO states, NLT, I highlighted that. Basically, it's a recount of presidential candidates and vice presidential candidates. So the screenshot we took was of that particular SEL 800 form that they gave us. That was not the case. That's what it says. That's nothing to do with a commissioner race or a recount. These are the main objectives in this case that we feel like we have. We want a full hand recount of the original, not duplicated ballots. Not to upset the next election, actually to protect it. Full investigations into the multiple timestamped screenshots. I think that's reasonable. Yeah. There's a security breach. It's clear as a bell. And all public records requests submitted fulfilled. We had activist groups submitting recount requests, recount and public records. We filed a public records request. We want it just done. That's law. Your rights matter. That's what I want you to take from here. Your rights matter. State and county dialogue is important. There were statutes violated. Multiple. We think about 8. We're going to talk to our attorney more, second meeting. State and county violated our rights as candidates. Candidates have rights. You do have rights when you run for office, and you need to know it. If you're armed with that, it'll be harder for them to pull the wool over your eyes. And the importance of recourse is huge. If we have questionable things happening in our election and there's fraudulent things happening and we have no recourse, we have an illusion of choice, folks. It's extremely important. It's the crux of it all. So these are some action items I want to leave you with. We think it would be important for you to organize teams to monitor a race. Take multiple screenshots throughout the race. Whoever race, pick a race. If you're on a candidate team, pick it. Document any of your findings, all communications. Share any suspicious activity to raise public awareness. Unite around solutions. Hold ballots until the last couple days or even the last day and drop them in person. That's as close as you're going to get to a vote in person until we change it, when we change it. Volunteer to be observer. Familiarize yourself with the process, and I thank you deeply for coming. We are extremely pleased you're here. Hold your public officials to a high standard of conduct, because what I showed you in the communications is unacceptable. Run for public office, including county clerk positions. Recourse is essential for accountable government. We, the people, are going to change this. Nobody else. Yeah. So, this is our organization. Oops, how come I didn't?
Just press it one more time.
Okay, there we go. So, I just want to tell you, this is the organization we formed to be able to fund our legal. We have retained an attorney, We've had a second visit, we've consulted, and we're getting direction, and he's going to try to extend the timelines for everything they tried to say that they're running us past. So that's where we're at in our process. Thank you so much.
Well, that's actually.
We have other speakers,
I
but
think we could
we'll
take
put
a
that on
pie
at the
break.
end for people, okay?
Yeah.
All right, our next speaker, who I'm pretty fond of, he's extremely supportive. He's been involved in politics, not only a former Washington County Commissioner of 2 terms, he's also was the treasurer for about 18 years in Washington County. He's deeply passionate about all things right and good in our elections, the right kind of people getting elected. He's been deeply involved in school boards, and he's been a big support and a wise counsel to many of us in the political realm, because he's a seasoned veteran. He's a veteran, and he's a seasoned political veteran. So without further ado, Bob Terry, former Washington County Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Dana. You don't have it turned on. I don't know, you may or may not even need me, I don't know.
Sorry, Bob. Right, you're on.
There it goes.
Very good.
Okay, can anybody hear me all right back there in the back? I generally don't need a mic very much, I'm pretty boisterous as I am, kind of like Ben Edtl. But anyway, I want to say good afternoon to everybody. First of all, this is a great pleasure. I've been with these young ladies on their, young to me, young ladies on their journey. It's been an interesting journey, and I have to say, first of all, unless you have done something like this, you have no idea how much work it is. They had to put together all those graphs, all those documents, and everything that they have. And I will tell you, there's one thing Dana left out that is really pretty important to her, Richard, is at one point she had actually copied the state when they were accusing her of not following the rules and regulations. And she sent them a pretty complete copy of all the steps she had already gone through, and they didn't even respond to her. It was like, you know, so you think we're not hitting a stone wall with the state? I'm going to cover that a little bit later on in my presentation, but right now, I want to tell you that, not like everybody, you know, you have your problem with your electronics. So I got my laptop here today because I have 2 printers, and neither one of them would print. So, and then my iPad cracked out, so now I just brought my whole laptop in. So we'll get it done. But you know, I'm going to take it a little bit different direction, because I got some people following behind me who will kind of bring you back to where you are right now with what the ladies have done. But you know, we've heard a lot of great things as to our aspirations today and what is wrong and how could it be so wrong. But I would like to give you a vision of what Clackamas County and our state could be and should be. But before I do that, that will be my summation, but before I do that, I want to first let's understand what went wrong. We're the ones that went wrong. We made an error in selecting our leaders. But worse than that, we went at least 2, but maybe as many as 4 generations behind us, what have been complacent, with us having been complacent and not willing to make the necessary sacrifices that my parents made and the parents before me. And that's a real serious problem. But you know, it's been like this, the changes have come ever since President Reagan. It's after President Reagan where we, the people, became very complacent and kind of things fall through the cracks. How did we do that? Well, first of all, I'll tell you that the sacrifices our parents made did assured us of a free capitalist democracy governed as a republic. It's very important you understand that. If anybody doesn't understand that, when we get into Q&A, I'd be happy to answer that question, because it's a very important question. Everybody thinks that we're a democracy. We are a democracy, but we're a republic first. And it's important you understand that, because so many people today, and part of our problem is, when you say you're a democracy, they think of the Democratic Party. And so they vote Democrats because they want a democracy. Believe it or not, that's absolutely the truth. So we have to educate our neighbors, our friends, as to what a republic really is and what a democratic republic really is. It's not a Democratic Party. So, is that better?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, I'm sorry. If you can't hear me in the back, just throw something at me. Except Ben, he had hit me. Most of us, we left our guiding light and our leader, God, behind us. Now the public think we are trying to make our government a Christian or God-fearing government. That's not true at all. What we're really trying to do is we only want to put Christians and those who believe in God back into our government. And I'm telling you, it should understand that we will bring the moral honesty and integrity back into our government that we have now been missing ever since President Reagan. Again, not a Christian government, but Christians in those who we believe in God in our government. And I specifically say it this way, as the Jewish religion and others do believe in God, as they well have the same moral basics as we have, those of us who are Christians, and that is what is missing. So we need to be inclusive to God, whatever it is, not just Christians. But if you go back in history, we left Great England. We left the British and became a British colony because England was a Christian governed government. And when you have one party, which what they were, one party, you're in trouble. And that's what created the United States. That's people forget that. The other thing people forget, our forefathers who came here from England, most of us were slaves in England. The Irish, I'm Irish. My grandparents were slaves in Ireland and England. The Scottish were slaves in England. But that never shows up in history books. But if you go back in history, you'll find that to be very, very true. It was really the English and the European countries that began slavery, and it brought people in from the south, from South America, or from Africa and places like that. Got my continents mixed up there, man. Anyway, I don't want to linger on that too long, but I just want to make a point of that because we have to get back to those basics. We've been believing when I say we didn't make the sacrifices, it's because we have been believing in the last 3 or 4 decades too much about the mighty dollar. That became our God. The dollar became our God. And it's not. And going to no end to gain and enjoy all the pleasures of life that we feel we deserve. Why do we deserve it? Because thank you to our forefathers, my parents and parents beyond them. The sacrifices they made and the lack of paying attention to our children. That's the mistake we made, starting with my generation. I paid attention to my kids. I know most everybody here who I know personally, you paid attention to your kids. But overall, we haven't paid attention to our kids. We're in trouble now in our schools because if we don't change this and do it now, then our kids, our grandkids, and our great-grandkids, of which I have, are not going to enjoy the freedoms and the things that we have been able to without making the sacrifices that we must make now. Again? I'll get this thing in front of me. How's that? We must see this and work to correct it. First, electing good moral leaders. Second, by paying attention to who and the history of those leaders and who they are and what they have been and what they do, where they come from. We must stop and smell the roses as to what's going on in our lives. We stop electing parties, the Democrat Party, the Republican Party, whatever the party may be. We have to stop electing the parties. We cannot be a one-party government, which we have seen here now for 4 decades in Oregon. What we're seeing right now is a result of those 4 decades of one-party government. And that is happening in our country right now. Again, since President Reagan, we had a couple of Republicans in there, but they were fairly weak when it came to the moral issues, and they talked a good story. They were good business people, but where did it lead us? Now we're finding out, I knew George Bush personally, quite well, in fact, and now I'm not so sure I like him anymore. They have kind of changed their directions. So we have to wake up and know who we're electing, and that takes time, but that's stopping and smelling the roses. A free elected capitalist or any other society, we need 2 parties. Without a dominant party running the society, if we vote more than just a down party ticket, then it will govern instead of us governing ourselves. That's what we're seeing right now. We have to wake up to it. I'm not asking for for any particular one of our governors right now that are running, any one of the three, to be your pick. I'm not asking you to do that. I have my favorite. But I can tell you, whoever I finally do vote for, they're going to be the one who I believe will make the changes. Right now, I spent last week about 10 or 15 minutes with Dresden, myself, on her and I talking. Prior to that, I had spoken many times with Betsy Johnson, with Betsy, because her and I worked together in Washington County. My district in Washington County went all the way from Cornelius Pass Road, if you know where that is. It's way over half of the county, all the way out past the county line. She was the senator. I was responsible for all the counties along the coast and along Columbia River. So her and I had to work together many, many times. And I will tell you, she's rough, she's tough, but she's a Democrat. And I know we can all say, yeah, she's a Democrat, but I am telling you, she will stand up to both sides, and she is a tough woman. She saved my life one time. I believe my life was saved by her because she stood up in front of me in a crowd that was loaded with guns, and she stood them down. That makes me somewhat partial to her, but I am not partial to her. I want to know both of them, and I want to hear them both, but I want to really hear them say. They will clean out the deadwood. They will reach down 4 or 5 layers in our government. What you heard these girls say this morning, these young ladies say this morning, you know whether they call them girls or gals or what now today. These people over here, and none of us believe in pronouns, but these 2 pronouns over here, anyway, what they went through. But what I watched them go through was not the elected official, and that's my point. Marc Thielman here, he would have made a great governor. Because he certainly would have cleaned out the deadwood, certainly would have reached down and grabbed people by their throats and their tonsils and jerked them out of office. I would be willing to bet you, as I stand here, because I've been through it many, many times in my life, in my business world, there is deadwood where you could cut out at least 30 to 35% of the people we have working in the state of Oregon and our county governments today. To give you a quick example of that, I said I would wrap up real quick. I didn't turn my clock on. How much time do I have?
About 7 minutes.
Okay. So what I really want to say is when you look at what has happened in Clackamas County, this county has so much potential to it. I'm saying Clackamas because most of you here are from Washington County, unlike me. But I'm here because this county has such a future. It could become the leading county of this metropolitan area and the state, where Washington County will no longer be that. You have businesses leaving Washington County just like they're leaving Portland. That's crazy. You have businesses moving out of Portland, moving into Washington County, and then moving on. I know at least 3 businesses right now, big businesses, that are looking outside of the state of Oregon to move their businesses to, and they want to expand. And because of the rules, the people we have to deal with, they're saying, screw this. It's too hard. I want to spend my millions of dollars fighting a bureaucracy that I can't win. I'm moving out of state. And these are big businesses moving out of Washington County. And you have a lot of them who have moved from Portland to Washington County, and now they're moving on because they've grown, their business is growing, and they can't handle it anymore. This is what we got to change. There's one way to change that, folks: us. Unless you want to see us riot and be part of the Antifa of another sort, then we have to change it at the ballot box. Voting a down ticket will not get it for you. You've got to look at everybody you're voting for, because that's the only way you have a 2-party system. And with a 2-party system, by everybody not voting down tickets, it will have its own checks and balances in it, and we will compete in a 2-party system. A 1-party system becomes a feudal landlord like we have today. I can't emphasize that enough. The other thing that Diane mentioned is that I have recruited a lot of school boards, Christian school boards, 16 the last time. Of the 16, we only got one elected. But I will tell you, in the Hillsborough School District, we had 4 of them. One of them got elected, and the other 3 combined came within 300 votes of being able to take over the county school board and having the school board run by Christians and people who care about their kids, care about their teaching, doing away with the CRT, CES, and all the other nonsense of where our country came from and how it started. You have to talk to your neighbors. You have to talk to the people who go to church. You have to talk to your family, your kids. As much as it hurts, you have got to be very emphatic about changing your vote, know who you're voting for, and then vote for them. You got to do that. If you don't do that, we will never make a change. And we will end up out on the street with our guns and our rifles that we're all holding at home, that we're all hoping and praying that we don't have to use. For Clackamas County, Clackamas County could be the leading county of this state. 30% of the revenue that goes into Salem comes out of Washington County. That should be Clackamas County. And it can be if we elect the right people here to take it over. I know we have some good county commissioners, but we also have leadership that doesn't have a backbone. We have some commissioners that does not have a backbone. They have got to stand up and hold up to themselves to Salem and the rest of the bureaucracy. This county has got to get a charter. You don't know how important it is that you do not have a charter. If you have a charter, you can get with that charter what's called home rule. Home rule means you have the opportunity to do things other than what the state is telling you to do. Fagan ran your Clackamas County elections office. That's who ran it. It wasn't Sherry. Sherry had to follow her direction. She was elected, but it's being run out of Clackamas County. Out of Salem. Same thing with your school boards. You elect your school boards, they have nothing to say about what happens in your school districts because it's all ran by the school board in Salem. Salem dictates, and if they don't do what they say, they hold up money. Because you hear how much money you get for each child, that's about a little over 60% of the budget. The rest of it is money that your counties can get for school education for other things, such as their art and their educations, the arts and football, basketball, all the other things that should be being taught in school. We got to get back to reading, writing, and arithmetic. How many of your grandkids know how to write? How many know how to read cursive? That's because you taught them. They didn't learn it in school. I asked the school teacher, are our kids that are growing up going to be like the caveman, make an X? But that's where we're headed if we don't teach them. You know, they think it's all right here. Their answer is, well, they don't need it. It's all right there. They can just send messages. That's why you see your kids sitting around on the same sofa across from each other, sending each other messages. They don't even know how to talk. It's our fault. We can blame the schools, but now we have to take and do what's right to change that. So I want you to look at who you're voting for, forget about the parties, vote to get winners in there. And one more thing I want to say, Dana, get some money to this group so they can finish what they're doing. They need your donation, they need your support. Your candidates who are running need your support. One thing about the offices I want to remind you of. The caucuses control the money in this state. It's not your party. Your parties are starving because the caucuses control the money. Give the money directly to your candidates that you want to support. Thank you all very much.
Well, I do want to say one thing that the voting issue and honesty in elections, we don't know who's doing it, what particular party affiliation, or who's responsible for it. The fact of the matter is, we do know that it seems to be leaning certain directions, okay? And there's the saying, a tree is known by their fruit. So the behaviors and the things that are happening and what we're witnessing is going to tell you probably what direction and who's responsible. I know for me, I love you, Bob, but I'm voting as my life depends on it, down ticket. Republican. Love you, Bob. We need a pendulum swing. It's been way too swung the wrong way after all the COVID lockdowns and everything. But I do love you. Well, I wanted to say our next speaker ran for former governor candidate of Oregon, and he founded Battleground Oregon and also founded the Good Fight podcast. He's deeply involved, fabulous person, and he is deeply in the trenches. Marc Thielman.
Sounds like Bob left his mic on. Yeah, there you go. Hey, real quick, well, thank you so much. It's so good to see so many people here. This is wonderful, and I'm sorry I was a little late, but I had other events to do today. It was kind of fun. A couple of things real quick, and just listening to the flavor of this. Raise your hand if you are 100% confident that your vote will be counted fairly and accurately in the next election. So, it's too bad we didn't have the cameras focused out this way, because this is something that I'm here to model for everybody. Is what I just created is evidence. Evidence that's admissible to the fact that the government has a duty. So whether it's Clackamas County or Washington County or any county, or even a city, municipality that runs an election, any government entity that runs an election has a duty and ought to have a high curiosity regarding people's confidence in the vote. Okay? So confidence is important. Matter of fact, confidence is defined in our court system as trust. And trust is the only commodity that really exists. Raise your hand if you shop at a store owned by people you don't trust. Anybody? I know, well, let's accept Amazon. I mean, come on, the deals are good, right? Well, we all do? Well, see, I used to trust Walmart. Why? Because it was cheaper than Safeway. But the humor of it is that sometimes we don't have a choice, do we? Now, how many people would love to have a choice to shop at a store owned by people they trust? Anybody? This is what I'm talking about. This is what's changed in our elections. So I'm sure that, we had the Tim Sipple trial in Washington County. Janice, you were there, and Chuck and some others. And raise your hand if you were there or followed that at all. That it was a wonderful opportunity to take a look at how much trouble we're actually in. And my favorite was the time where Stephen Jockis got up and showed Section 22 of the contract. The contract said that all the data is property of Washington County. And that includes, the database and the language, and then if anything turns out to be a trade secret or something that is, proprietary, the contract said we'll cede all that to Washington County because they're the customer. And what was a riot about that is you should have seen the Secretary of State's representative, her legal representative, and Washington County's legal representative squirm. Was anybody watching them?
Yes.
I was. And this is what's really nice. We're all human beings. So you have to look at the relational aspect of we people. And if you don't believe me, raise your hand if you've ever been married or in a relationship with a significant other. Anybody? Yeah, pretty much everybody in the room, right? A lot of people start to sweat there, like, oh man. So if you've ever been in a relationship with a significant other, you could walk into the room, maybe you haven't seen your significant other for a few hours, you might have 2 or 3 other people with you, and you can tell right away something's wrong. Raise your hand if that ever occurred to you, if you ever experienced that. Where the other people with you might just think everything is fine. See how this goes? And the reason is that you're attuned to the nonverbal behaviors of someone you know extremely well. Well, the beauty of it is that imagine if we had a government that allowed themselves, you, the people, to get to know them extremely well. Raise your hand if you know your county clerk extremely well.
Too well.
A couple of them do. How's that relationship going? Do you trust them? No. Right there, the government has failed in its duty. The goal of government is to create confidence and trust. So the other premise is that we, the people, are the government. Raise your hand if you know that. Anybody? They don't teach it in school anymore, except in my school district. But except I'm not there anymore, so God only knows what they're teaching now. But the beauty of it is look at that. That's a relationship, and that means that there cannot be a gap between the government and the people. So, raise your hand if you heard the president's speech, you know, the one with the halls of Lucifer behind there, with the demon minions dressed like Marines. Anybody see that one? Well, in my opinion, and I'll state my bias, I thought that was one of the most shameful speeches in human history.
Amen.
And here's why. We have to understand that we're in a different game, and we've lost control. We've ceded a lot of our control in our systems to people that don't think like we do. They don't value family. They don't value anything other than their agenda. So if you listen to my podcast, which is The Good Fight with Marc Thielman, catch it on Spotify, I said, a month and a half ago that they were going to arrest Donald Trump. And it was only until last week that all of the conservative people were out saying they're going to arrest Donald Trump. And the thing that gives me an edge and helps me be effective in debates, if you watch me during the governor campaign, which is why no one wanted to debate Marc. They went through hysterics to prevent Marc from being on TV, and that's why I went to Dorchester, and I beat them at their own game. And if you saw that debate at Dorchester, I was hands down the winner. No one has ever won the Dorchester straw poll with such a high percentage. And again, that is because relationship matters. It's an ability to stand up here and connect with you, the people. And that's what Bob's talking about. Elect people that you can relate to, that even if they don't agree with you, will give you your due and your respect. Because we're okay with being told no. We're not okay with being lied to.
That's right.
We're not okay with being dehumanized. Like the president said, if you do not agree or you merely question the outcome of the 2020 election, right? He called them free and fair elections. You are a threat to democracy. So it's nice to be here in front of all you terrorists. But when I saw that speech, I couldn't believe it. I'm not kidding you, I could not believe it. I stood there in shock, listening to every word, thinking, this guy has lost his marbles. Because he's talking about millions of Americans. Millions. When has that ever happened in history?
Never.
Think about it.
Germany.
So, I started a PAC called Battleground Oregon with the specific goal of getting a machine together that will bypass the party. Because the establishment side of our own party doesn't get it. They don't get it. So what that means is, and I, working with Dana and May, and working with Pam and Rod down in Coos Bay, and Battleground Oregon is designed. Any money Battleground Oregon makes goes to support local lawsuits and federal lawsuits. So Battleground is going to be filing a federal lawsuit, and I know I'm probably short on time, but I wanted to set this up. Do you guys mind if I read a little bit of the languages that exist now? I'd like to give you a sneak peek because it's very different than what you saw in the Tim Sipple trial. Oh, I got another 15 minutes? Okay.
We can't go on time.
Well, we're in great shape. Now, I have to ask for your forgiveness because these are my wife's glasses because I couldn't find mine. So,
You guys share the same prescription.
they're not as manly as I'd like.
We'll give you a pronoun.
Yeah, appreciate it. You don't want to know my pronoun, it's profane. See? So, let me give you an example. So, talking with Steve and Jonka, same attorney. So I'm working with Steve, and Tyler Smith's another good one. I know he's working with two other. And I've been given permission to work with both attorneys on multiple cases because that's what the Democrats do. It's not something we conservatives are used to doing. And the goal is that we begin to take our resources and get them working together. And what's nice about that is it's the same thing really that the unions have done to deny us our voice in government. But we're a little bit better because, see, unlike the unions, we deal in reality. So if you look at Stacey Abrams last Tuesday, anybody catch her? The supposed governor of Georgia who questioned the outcome of a free and fair election, but because she's a Democrat, she gets a pass. But she was out and she said that ultrasounds are really a misuse of science created by white men to fake heartbeats at 6 weeks to deny women control of their bodies. Now, this is the real deal. She really said that. And so then Twitter comes out because they have to do damage control. Well, technically the valves in the heart at 6 weeks aren't working right. It's just cardiac activity. So look what the left does. They've done their focus group work. They put tons of women in groups. This is what they did. And you know what women said, all race, creed, walk, and color? They said, well, if it's a heartbeat. So now they have to say it's not really a heartbeat. Remember when they told you that it was just a group of cells? Well, I'm in a room full of groups of cells. So here's the beauty of it. It's not about the position. You can be pro-choice or pro-life. That's your choice. It's your decision to make. I can't make it for you. I can tell you what I believe, and hopefully that'll be persuasive. Since I'm a father of 9, obviously I'm a pretty pro-life guy. All right? And a heartbeat was a good thing when you were expecting a baby. Okay? Even if it was an unexpected baby, which all but one of mine were. Right? Anybody have an expected baby in here? Yeah, there you go, Bob. Yeah, okay, once. And he's 80 years old, so it shows you there should be tons of them in here. But that's the beauty of life, am I right? So the thing about it is, I want to read this to you because I want to try to model for you how I believe we need to start fighting this war. So instead of going, oh, Stacey Abrams is crazy, what we do is we tell the truth. She is stressed out by the fact that so many women in the focus group sessions funded by Democratic National Committee, humanized a heartbeat. So now we have to dehumanize that heartbeat under the name of science. Huh? Yes. So if we're up against biased and liberal judges, like we kind of saw in Washington County last week, had a great follow-up with Stephen Jonkis, but unfortunately it's attorney-client privilege. But Jonkis was kind of depressed and tired. And I said, dude, this is great news that you saw the corruption of the judge. I said, Jonkis, this is what I'm talking about. And then we went over some of this language. So can I read it to you now? So this is a federal case, and here's the complaint. The complaint is that the government has created an indelible separation through its behavior. The whole presentation that Dana and May have talked about in their experience is an example of that, where the very county clerk eventually says, well, look, I didn't really run the election. It was Shamia Fagan. See, that really is an interesting state of being, isn't it? Who is going to take responsibility? So here's how this works. I'm going to take the words of the left and put them in this case, so try not to throw up. But everything I'm about to read to you is true, and it's verifiable, and you can find support for it. Okay, so Jonkis wrote up a rough draft, and then I rewrote most of it. Are you ready? But his draft was really good, by the way, but it needed more of this kind of language. So here it goes. A majority of Americans are confronted with a storm of election anomalies. If we say election fraud, we're going to have a tougher time persuading a judge. That's so we stop saying that. We're talking about anomalies that cause people to have less confidence. Anomalies is exactly what May and Dana used to call and talk to me about weeks ago. Like, what the hell? How did my votes blankety blank, now May, quit swearing, go down? You didn't really swear, but am I right though? In your mind. Because votes should never go down when they update after counting more votes. Okay, that's called an anomaly. We're not saying it's fraud, but what we're saying is it doesn't look what? Right. Good, right. And it causes people to start thinking conspiratorially, like maybe something's wrong. And that is completely perpetuated at the hands of the government. So that's the theme. Here we go. Majority of Americans are confronted with a storm of election anomalies that have served to undermine the confidence of a significant percentage of the American electorate. Now, I'm supporting the fact that we are not the entire population of Portland in this room. So we got maybe, 80 people? It only takes 80 to create a crisis that the government should be responsive to. See? And that's the point. So now I can say, it doesn't matter if it's not a majority of Americans, it's a significant proportion of the electorate. We have elections for what is the percent of the electorate or elections held for? Anybody? 50%? I've got news for you. Elections are held for 100% of eligible voters. So if a significant portion are concerned or have a lack of confidence or feel like their vote doesn't matter, the government has a problem. So that's what this means. So, say a significant percentage of the American electorate in the integrity of our free and fair elections. A citizen's vote is a fundamental expression of the First Amendment. Raise your hand if you knew that. Your vote is free speech. And if you are not feeling comfortable to cast your vote, to exercise your First Amendment right, and it's because you have no trust or confidence in the government has now what? They violated your rights. They disenfranchised you. Okay? And it's a powerful thing because we've been here before in our nation's history, and it is absolutely shameful that we are here again. So it says here, a citizen's vote is a fundamental expression of the First Amendment, and as such is guaranteed equal protection under the U.S. Constitution. Equal protection is a duty of local, state, and federal government agents, and as such, the curiosity of federal, state, and county election officials for upholding voter confidence must be of the highest order. So now I'm establishing for the court that election officials have a duty, and it's a duty which you will find is written in their policies and in their mission statements. Unfortunately, state, county, and city election officials have consistently demonstrated a profound lack of curiosity for alleviating the negative impact of these anomalies on the confidence of the average voter. We have seen this lack of curiosity from government agencies before in our nation's history. Now we take a page from the left. We've seen this in our nation's history in the Jim Crow South, where federal, state, and local officials used the narrative of separate but equal, which was the Supreme Court case Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896. If you don't know that one, look it up. It's what created separate but equal, which created Jim Crow and discrimination. And it was pushed for and passed by, basically, Southern sympathizing local state governments, and that effect and the impact they had on the federal government in the late 1890s. And they did this to keep whole populations of the electorate. Now, didn't I just establish that? If there is a significant proportion of people who don't have confidence that their vote counts, that's a portion of the electorate. Well, we saw it in history. But in this case, it was easier to define. Okay? Namely, African American and other communities of color for participating on a level playing field in the expression of their vote. And we all know this from the history books. Setting up a shooting range by the polling booth, right? A bunch of white rednecks out there shooting their guns. That's intimidating in the Jim Crow South to African Americans. And this is well known. That's why Martin Luther King did the things that he did. And we're so much better off because he did that. It says that this conduct was reconciled by the federal case Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas, 1954. in which the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that the very existence of two, quote, equal systems creates a psychological disparity of confidence in the integrity and exercise of equal protection among white versus communities of color. Anybody alive and old enough to remember that? Bob? President Eisenhower, okay? Remember, he was the general who opposed desegregation of the military. Remember that?
Yeah.
But President Eisenhower was a good American, and he understood how the branches of government worked. And believe me, his cabinet was particularly surprised when he immediately jumped on the bandwagon when those African American students in Arkansas, Little Rock, were prevented from entering the high school. And it was the President of the United States. Eisenhower was so angry that he said, not only did he take over and federalize the National Guard in Arkansas, he said, I want the very National Guardsmen who prevented those children from entering that school to escort those children into that school on Monday. Let's give Eisenhower a round of applause. Now, Eisenhower was from a different time, and some of his very bigoted friends put pressure on him, and he said, I'm the President of the United States, our Supreme Court has ruled, and I'm going to do this job even if it kills me, because they were worried about him getting shot. You know what happened to Kennedy, right? Now, we need leadership like that. We need to return to that. So, not to go too long, you guys interested in me continuing? Yeah. Okay. All right, because I get fired up reading this because I cannot wait. Okay. So it says here, thus the federal, state, and county election officials were empowered to facilitate one system for voting that granted all people equal access and opportunity to exercise their power to vote with full confidence that their vote was anonymous, secure, and of equal measure. Write that down. And when you talk after the symposium moving forward, you tell all your friends and neighbors and relatives and loved ones, even your loved ones on the left, and ask them, well, don't you want your vote to be anonymous and secure? Because it's not. So I was out in campaigning in Pendleton, and this guy pulled me aside, and he was just absolutely upset. Big old cowboy-looking guy, he owned a couple 100,000 acres. Very wealthy person, and he was afraid. And he heard me speak, and he came down and he said, I'm now going to vote for you. And he says, and here's why. He went to turn his vote in to the county office about 2 weeks early, and then he found out that his vote wasn't recorded as being cast because they had put it in the mail. The county courthouse, the elections people, put it in the mail and mailed it out to Portland and back to Pendleton. Okay. Well, that caused me to say, why would they do that? Well, during this Tim Simple case, we learned why. And you saw the announcement, the post office is now going to implement a ballot tracking system.
Talked about that earlier. You
cannot manipulate the vote with algorithms unless you know how many votes are being cast. And because there's a code on the envelope, they know Republican votes, and then they know a rough percentage of how those votes are going to fall versus Democrat votes versus NAV votes. So you would think it wouldn't make sense. Is that efficient use of resources, putting postage and mailing something out and back after it's been hand delivered to you? Okay, so this voting anomaly is real. This behavior is real. That's what's going on. So this case is relational. Notice it's interesting to listen to. You kind of like, at least I think it is, but then again I wrote it. So it says here, with full confidence that their vote was unanimous, secure, and of equal measure. Well, your vote's not anonymous if you turn it in and then it's mailed somewhere else. It's not anonymous if it's a code on the envelope that says you're a Republican or a Democrat. The county election clerk should give a crap about what party you're in if you turn in your vote. But apparently they do. So the maintenance of confidence in this one citizen, one vote system is the duty of all government election agencies. The recent tsunami of election irregularities or anomalies and the verifiable existence of proven voter fraud in multiple jurisdictions across the United States at the hand of the government agencies and officials has served to create a crisis of confidence that federal and state agencies have a duty to address in an open, fair, and transparent manner. May, has your issue been dealt with in an open, fair, and transparent manner? No. Okay? So, since the 2020 election, plaintiffs have worked diligently. Now, here's what I would like everyone to leave this room knowing. I didn't start looking into the elections and election integrity to prove voter fraud. I know for a fact in Lane County, they didn't start canvassing and looking into it. They did it to prove there was not voter fraud. That elections in Lane County are secure. And guess what they found out? That there's reason to be concerned. See? And this is what I mean. If anyone asks, you're trying to prove there was voter fraud. You think Trump didn't win. Let all that go. Tell people, no, I just wanted to, double check, trust but verify. And instead I was called a terrorist and a threat to democracy. By the way, I put President Biden in this case. Is that okay? Okay, and so in simple terms, they sought to prove that our elections are indeed safe, secure, and worthy of the full confidence of the American voter. Shockingly, the very agents of federal, state, and county governments that swear an oath to uphold the U.S. Constitution have encumbered, disrupted, obstructed, and outright denied access of the people to public records. They refuse to investigate findings from election canvassers and impugn the reputation of election integrity-minded citizens. You guys are no longer deniers. You're simply members of the election integrity-minded community. Just like the left says you can no longer call people who are illicitly vile pedophiles, that they're not bad, they're just minor attracted persons. President Biden said that. Now, here's the beauty of it. You guys are now members of the election integrity-minded community. It's an exclusive club. Okay? So, these behaviors are consistent and encompass the highest level. Whoops, I'm sorry, I missed a spot here. Okay, so it says here, blah, 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 I lost my spot. These behaviors are consistent nationwide and encompass the highest levels of our federal government. As President Biden named any citizen that, quote, this is a direct quote from his speech, question the integrity of our free and fair elections is a threat to democracy. And he named those as Donald Trump and MAGA what?
Republicans.
I enjoyed when America was great again. Did anybody? Gas was cheap, inflation was low, all of my 9 kids got jobs, right? My income went up. I even made money in the stock market. Oh man, it is like a 180 reversal. So, I'll finish up here. So this says, this rhetoric from our federal government, the integrity of free and fair elections is a threat to democracy. This rhetoric from the highest levels of government, is the president one of the highest levels? Yes. From the highest levels of government and the right of all people to be secure in their thoughts, their person, and their right to exercise free speech, seek redress of grievances with their government. Isn't that what you're trying to do, Dana?
Absolutely.
Yes. And with their government and their right to cast their vote in full confidence and in a manner consistent with their right of self-expression, without threat of being dubbed a terrorist or any other moniker of division, because that's what we're up against. Sowers of division, and it's wrong. At the hands of the government or any government official. That's the basis of the complaint. Plaintiffs contend that the behavior of state and local officials negatively impacts voter confidence in our elections and facilitates voter disenfranchisement. What is happening in Oregon and across the United States is mass voter disenfranchisement on an unprecedented scale at the hands of the government. Here's from President Biden, without free and fair elections, we will lose the soul of our country to the agents of division and fraud who are believed by millions to be actively working to suppress free and fair expression of the citizen vote. It has happened elsewhere, such as in Venezuela, in which elections are understood not to be free and fair. This is from an interview 60 Minutes Biden did, which they are not equal participants in free and fair and Civil Voting Society. President Biden recently acknowledged these facts in his recent statement, in which he cited the tyranny in Venezuela and stated that deporting these freedom-loving and seeking migrants would be irrational. So here's what's nice about this. Notice what I'm doing. I'm using the president's words, what? Against him. This is a tool we must all use. Anytime a woke, crazy leftist tries to shame you on the street, in the grocery store, in person, or on social media, you tell them, why do you support voter suppression? I stand against voter suppression. Aren't you even curious? Okay, these are the people who are now denying that they're now calling a fetal heartbeat cardiac activity. How many people have cardiac activity occurring right now? I'm telling you, it's tough. You see why I'm doing a podcast. It's a lot of fun. So here it says that plaintiffs and all Oregonians, and I'm almost done, have a constitutional and statutory right to have their ballots counted accurately, securely, and transparently, so that only legally cast votes determine the winners of each contested office, and all rules and laws governing elections are consistently followed and enforced. Now that's a beautiful thing. Junkers won't like that part because some of our new laws they're a little too open, right? But you want to put it in there because we are trying to put pressure on the judge. So there's the basis of the case. I hope you enjoyed that. That's the intro. It gets even better if you read further.
Is that what he's turning into?
Yeah,
Basically?
yeah. And Chuck, by the way, raise your hand, Chuck. Chuck's also helping, and he's one of our resources. And it goes on for many pages. This thing's going to be 40, 50 pages by the time we're done. But here's why we have an opportunity, is we don't just fight these cases in court. We also fight them in the court of public opinion. That's where Battleground comes in. That's where Dana's awesome Your Justice Cool thing you've set up. And what we need is a couple thousand, preferably 10,000 small donors to the cause. $5, $1, $2. Talk to your friends. Everybody can give $5. Because when this thing gets filed, the judge is gonna, they're human beings. They follow the news and they research cases. They need to see thousands of people supporting these cases. And they're not going to be concerned with how much you gave. They're going to be looking at the number of people supporting, which is why it's important to for everybody to give and to push this out. And we'll have updates coming. My podcast, I got a whole, my Battleground Oregon thing is going to be sending out a whole bunch of emails. Many of you will get those. I'll send them to me and you guys get them out. And so I'll send them out to other groups who can send them out to their what? Groups. And what's beautiful of it is this is what the left does, and this is something we haven't done. We're going to start doing. So thank you for your time. God bless you. Thank you for letting me go through that.
Thank you, Mark, for all that you're doing, and we're glad to all of us be in the groove together. You know, we're all Americans, and the bottom line is if we have fair and free elections, then whoever is running for office, doesn't matter what political party, they are going to have to answer to the will of the people on all issues that are concerning the citizenry. So that's the key here, is they will have to be doing the will of the people. So when there's questionable things and you're wondering about the behavior and why they don't seem to care, that's a whole other thing. So we got to get back to basics. So our next guest is Janice Dysinger. She is the ORP Elections Chair, and she's very instrumental, very involved, laid a lot of tracks down over the years that, like I said, every single discovery leads to new discovery. We thank you for your support. And so Janice Dysinger, without further ado.
Okay, thanks so much. It's great to be here with all of you wonderful people. So I started this slide a while back, and I left it on here so you can see that Oregonians for Fair Elections and Clean Voter Rolls. I had two separate groups through the years, and they're used for different purposes. So election integrity is the subject, organizing for fair elections. I use that mainly for when we're at the legislature, and the legislature is continuing to make us a more fraud-friendly state, and it has done that since I've been involved since 2008. And so I went through some of my, at Western Liberty Network, let me see if I can hear. So where we derived our election, I thought I'd just give you a little summary of some of this stuff. So the Oregon Secretary of State has this portal, and they're developing a new OCBR, and their goal, I believe, is to, by 2023, to make it so that we can vote online. We can register on the same day that we vote. They're trying to make us after the same system as Washington State. And if you go on this, it has a lot of history behind it, and it shows all of our terrible laws. So they may be putting together a more secure, and I doubt that, but they say it's to make the system more secure, but it's still got the same lousy laws in it that allow people to vote and register without ID. So you can't, if you're going to keep bad laws in place, you're not going to get a good system. But I'd encourage you to go there. So I work with Oregon Citizens Lobby. We have about 11 teams there, over 1,000 people, and we let people know what laws are coming up that are going to be debated and the legislature is trying to pass. So I'd encourage you all to join Oregon Citizens Lobby. If you have a favorite subject that you try to monitor all the time, they probably got a team that can use your expertise. And people with certain expertise, I review the election law and the rules committee, and then send out on Oregon Citizens Lobby. I'll send notices to people who sign up for election law, what's going on, so that they can make testimony. And you only have about 48 hours to put your testimony in when it comes up time. So you can put it in just a little bit before the bill's heard and a little bit after. And it's difficult to get the notice out to people that want to testify, and on such a timeline that they will know when to put that testimony in. And that's how you become part of the record, is to get it in at that specific time. And one of the bills that we had, we got 172 people to get their testimony in right before a bill was going to be voted on, and the other side got only 17 people to put in testimony, and they completely ignored all of ours. So it was very frustrating. These are some of the bills that we saw in 22. These didn't all pass, so but it's what we have to fight with all the time. There's Oregon Citizens Lobby, and OregonCitizensLobby.org. I think we have a .com as well now. So please go there and sign up. We have track their vote, so you can see through the years. You can track a legislator, you can track different bills, and so this is a great resource for you. I'd encourage you, if you want to follow what your legislator's done, if you want to follow a candidate and see how they voted, please go to tracktheirvote.org. It goes back over 10 years. Yeah, so these are their committees. You can write to the legislature, but down here at the bottom, you submit this testimony to one address, and it makes it nice, and it's put on part of the record, it becomes part of the permanent record. Otherwise, it just goes to the legislator, in particular, that you're trying to reach. So I just told how that happens. Then the other thing we do is through Oregon's for Fair Elections is we try to get observers for the elections, and so I put on an observer training this last spring, and afterwards I sent out the PDF of my PowerPoint, And it went out to the people who attended it. And then within a week, I had a call from Deborah Scrogren, who is the election director from Oregon. And she called me up and she said, I'm election director and I'm calling to talk to you. I said, oh, is this a friendly call or an official call? And she says, it's an official call. And I want you to know that I got a copy of your notes that you sent out. And I disagreed with what you said. And she went on about it, and I asked her what she found was the problem, because I said, if I made a mistake or anything, I would really like to change it and correct it. She couldn't get specific about what I had said that was wrong. And I said, well, I can't change it if you don't tell me what's wrong with it. And so she said, well, she didn't have much time to spend on it right now. And I said, well, I know you're busy, we're all busy, but if you find something that you think that I said was wrong, please let me know, and I'll be glad to change it and correct it, because I want to be accurate. She said she'd have her clerks look at it. I never heard another word from her. But she told me before she hung up that I cannot speak in public about election law unless I quote the exact Oregon Revised Statute that I'm talking about.
Has she heard of the First Amendment?
Yeah, we reminded her of that. First, I called Lars Larson and told him about it, and the First Amendment, my Ninth Amendment, and in fact, 18 U.S.C., the code 242 said that if any official tries to intimidate somebody under the color of law, it's a felony. Very frustrating. I mean, and now I just got notice from Multnomah County Elections they're going to have observer training. Isn't that nice? So check with your local office. Maybe they'll offer some observer training too. So Cleta Mitchell, she put together a workbook on how to create election integrity group. And Stan Satter here in Clackamas County, there he is right there, has built a wonderful group, and I just really applaud him and his team for what they've done. And if you want to help here in Clackamas County, please get together with Stan, because he can help you. And they've done an amazing job on observation, and they put in testimony, and these are the things that you can do to help make a difference.
Ballot box observations too.
Yes, you did, and you saw people trying to vote, as I remember you telling me.
We actually caught somebody, in Wilsonville, we were observing a ballot box, and the election officials were supposed to show up at 8 o'clock, but they didn't show up. They didn't show up, at 8.
It wasn't secured, the ballot wasn't secured.
So here's a ballot box, 8 o'clock, and it's still taking ballots. These ballots are illegal after 8 o'clock. And so my observer called me and said, Stan, what do I do? And so I went over there and I called elections. I said, hey, you've got a ballot box that's open right now after 8 o'clock, and people are putting ballots in there. So they panicked, and they sent a supervisor out there. We actually observed 4 people putting ballots in after 8 o'clock. And that actually blew up to a really big thing, to where even Shemaya Fagan got involved in this whole thing. But it was, our ballot box observations are important.
Right.
And our observations for the election office too are important too. So, it's important to keep these officials on notice that we're watching. We're not going to let them get away with stuff.
Right. It's up to the people to make sure the election law is followed. Heritage Foundation ranks us number 48 out of, we're the number 48 on the list of good election law. We're only surpassed by California and Hawaii for bad election law. So these are the reasons that they have how they vote, they cast it. So, in the election, let me see, I want to make sure I'm not taking too much time here. So, Tim Zippel's case in Washington County, I don't know how much you've heard about it today, but he had asked for the SQL database for the 2020 election for just the Yeah, the public test. And so they denied him that, and he got the DA involved. The DA said, yes, you can have it because it's, in the contract, it's allowed. And then the county clerk said, no, you can't have it. And then Shemia Fagan got involved and said, no, you can't. But we won in this case already because Ellen Rosenblum, the Attorney General of Oregon, intervened, spoke up for Shemia Fagan and said, even the tabulators are vulnerable to wireless attack. And this is a huge admission because we've been told that there's a big air gap and that you can't get to the tabulators online because of this wire gap. And so that was a huge admission for her to say that because the clerks are saying, no, you can't do it. Tim Scott down on the county says, Janice, I am a computer expert. I know, I have a degree in computers. Our systems are not online. And he showed me how we've hardened this. He said, I can go online and it says there's wireless available, but you can't connect it. But over in Washington County, who went on the witness stand but Mickey Kwai. And from what I understand, I didn't get to see that part of the testimony, but I'm told that she said she could go down on the second screen and turn the monitor off, turn the modem off and on. So that was an amazing revelation already. So that's tremendous that came out of that system, that trial. And I've already told you this, so the restraining order. So Tim asked for the SQL database for the public test and they denied it. Then I had, in the meantime, had ordered the ballot images and the CBR and all that, and it took me about a month to get that ready. And they had been ready and not ready, ready and not ready, and so I had 2 hours to get there, travel time. So I asked him if he'd go over and pick it up because I didn't want to get there and it's not ready again. So he said, sure, and I said, you can have a copy. So he started to make a copy of it that when he got home and found out that the SQL database was in there for the 2020, Washington 2020 election. So he told Stephen Jonkis, his attorney, that he had it, and then he told their other side that they had it. So they put a restraining order on, and Tim can't give me my data. It's been all summer. I just got it this last week. I didn't get the SQL database, but I got the rest of the order. So the temporary restraining order was turned into a protective order so that they could have experts look at this data and see what's in there, and then that's what the trial was about. So I want you to know about this blog spot on Truth in the Pacific Northwest, and I need to get to the other file that's on there, so I don't get out of the PowerPoint.
I can help you do that, yeah.
And there's the Truth in the Northwest blog spot. Since I was restricted from hearing the case, I wanted you to know a little bit about what they had to say during the trial. Margot Logan is a wonderful patriot. She is a former, she's a whistleblower for the Children's Protective Services, and she came forward and exposed some of the things that go on there, and she's become quite an activist. And so here she talks about Judge Whipper. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to scroll for you.
Okay,
because
go on down.
Yeah, because you know.
Okay, just go on down. So she talked about Tim, myself, and what I just told you going down, and Shemia Fagan getting involved. And this is a great article to share with somebody who wants to know what's going to happen. Keep going on down. And we talked here. Tim Sippel talks about Dr. Franks getting involved with the case, and it was very interesting. I did get to hear the last part of the trial where they tried to keep Dr. Franks' examination of the data out of the trial. They wouldn't let him become known as a political expert. He was only a math expert because he showed that In every age group in Washington County, the percentage of Republicans voting in each precinct was 82%. And in 81 age categories, every age category, 82% of Republicans voted. How does that happen? That's pretty amazing. So that can only be accomplished with an algorithm. It's just, so they wouldn't let him enter that into the record. So they kept that out.
Don't redo the algorithm to create variability.
Probably so. Go ahead and go on down. It's about Steve Trout made I don't know if any of you know too much about it, but Steve Trout, just before the 2020 election, wrote a letter to Shania Fagan and Kim Thatcher about the problems within the election system, and it's very eye-opening. Going down. Keep going a little bit more. So this is Dan Forrester. He was the IT person over at Multnomah County Elections, and now he's the county clerk after Mickey Klein quit. He's in Washington County. He's the elections director there now. Go ahead, going down. And this is Mark Cook. He is he is an IT expert. He started working when he was 10 years old, building his own company. And going down a little bit more, he invented this little guy and part of a word processor. And he talked about how the data that was produced from the SQL database, from the software that is inside the tabulator is a work product. The SQL database is a work product. It's not part of the software. It's the end result. And so it's not a threat to let it loose into the public sphere. Go ahead. There's Mark. And anyway, I wanted you to be aware, so we can go back to the PowerPoint. If I'll put that, I'll link it up on the clean voter rolls. I also have, clean voter rolls. I have my own press release on the Tim civil case, and I wanted you to become aware. I went to the Moment of Truth with Mike Lindell's, and I got to testify there about Oregon's elections. And I told him about the trial coming up. But while I was back there, I was very impressed with the speakers that Mike Lindell brought forward. Many were cyber experts, former military, for our weapons system, for cyber security for our nation, for government, and their credentials were above reproach. And it was just amazing. You can go online to frankspeech.com and you can go through the different presentations that we got to see. But this is one of the things that I'd be glad to send this around. The expert on the miniaturization of components in a computer was amazing. This little tiny piece up here is a modem. It's the size of the pencil lead. And it is used, when it's put on the board, it looks like a wire connector. So it's so tiny that most experts that are used to working on computers are not expecting it. And so having a wireless modem inside of a computer is something probably most people in our elections, even if they look inside the machine, are not going to be able to recognize. So, well, anyway, I brought that up because I wanted people to know that they think they're looking at the same system that we had even a few years ago, that they'd be able to recognize where we are. But the technology is so far above that now that they won't even know that the system is online or that it's capable of being hacked. But the reality is that it is capable of being hacked. And the solution to this is to do, first I should tell you that we should hear something from the judge in the next couple of weeks, and I don't care which side is declared the winner, it's going to be, they're going to appeal it, whoever winds it's going to appeal. So we're going to be a while knowing what's going on here. So the other thing I wanted to tell you about is canvassing is the solution to a lot of this. So we need to go out and find out from the voters how they voted by, not who they voted for, but if they voted by mail, if they dropped their ballot in the drop box, if they voted, didn't vote, and who's at that. And we've been doing some of that at the fairs. And so we have found a number of people that have had problems. And so we want to do this and report it to our sheriffs and have an investigation go forward. Talked to a sheriff today and said he was very happy to talk to me. We've already gotten another sheriff, got several of them interested. So if you get a chance to talk to law enforcement, to your sheriff or whatever, please, we want to get them connected to Dr. Frank, and so he can explain to him explain to the sheriff what we found, because he can open up an investigation and then we'll have some real ability to get some action. So that's very critical. County teams are the way to do that. And Dr. Frank has lists that make it very efficient to go out and to canvass. Then we'll be going back to observing our general election this fall, and Stan's group will be active again, as well as we've got groups all over the state. They're going to be doing that. And as Bob Terry said, and as Mark said, it's up to the citizens of this state to make our elections work. We've got to hold our election and the people accountable for how they conduct our election, and we can't let people like Darris Grogan intimidate us. We need to stand up to them and tell them that we want a fair election. Please visit my websites, and they just kicked me off of Facebook on clean voter rolls. I posted the video of Dr. Frank's Oregon analysis, and you can see that analysis on cleanvoterrolls.com. If you want to go there, you can watch Dr. Franks give the whole presentation, and it's very, very eye-opening. I hope you will. Thank you very much for your attention today, and if you have any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
Let you know this was found in the bathroom. Thank you, Janice, so much. So before I introduce our last speaker. Hold on a second. So our last speaker, during all of the 2020 debacle with all of the lockdowns and everything, he formed a civil rights organization to help get the government back in its place. The organization he founded is called Free Oregon, and he has taken the fight to the next level, and he's running for State Senate District 19, and his name's Ben Edtl, and I'm extremely pleased to introduce him because this person has given and sacrificed so much of his time to mobilize people into going after things that are right. Thank you.
Can I take this off?
Whatever you want to do.
Awesome, I gotta move around. Hi everybody, my name's Ben Edtl. I'm the founder of Free Oregon, and I'm running for State Senate District 19, which is just across the river. The river is the boundary. I have no idea what to talk about. I sat here for the last couple of hours and I was blown away by what I saw. I remember when Sybil called me up and he said, dude, I have the whole thing, 8 terabytes of data. And I was like, that's amazing. I mean, that is amazing, it's screwed up. And I think with the election integrity thing, and you know the rest, but the thing with the election integrity is that are these people conning us, or are they just incompetent? And I asked that question to Mark earlier today, and he said both. And and we can pretty much count on that. I am so busy running and campaigning in the district that I wasn't even able to go to the trial last week. So I don't even know what to say about it, other than I've had a few text messages with Stephen Jonkis, and I feel like it went really well, besides some of the things that we expect, right? Like, Dr. Frank's expert testimony won't be included, right, in certain areas that we need them the most. And Janice, I think it's wonderful that you got kicked off of Facebook, because that's how you know something's true. Right? Right? Like the Hunter Biden laptop. You know, it's the same thing. And I was thinking too about election integrity stuff, and then I'm going to move into legislative stuff. But, you know, it's funny, I kind of wonder, what does Al Gore, Hillary Clinton, and Bernie Sanders all have in common? Well, they all claimed that there was election fraud, and that's why they lost. Remember Florida? Okay, Bernie Sanders claimed it during for the primary leading up to, 2016, right? So this is something that happens on both sides. But now, all of a sudden, if you claim that, maybe there's election fraud, you might get a visit by the FBI. I mean, it's pretty crazy stuff to think about this. But that's the truth, right? So someone's being, treated unfairly, aren't they? All right, so I don't know if there's election fraud for certain, because I think there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that I've seen and that we've talked about today. But I don't know. We have to be able to get from where we're finding the anomalies and proving fraud. And when that happens, if people don't go to jail and things don't change, that's what we have guns for. All right, that's what it's for. This is serious stuff. This is very serious stuff. But I want more than anything to be able to solve it in Salem. And the one thing that I think that concerns me the most too is Republicans that I talk to, conservatives that I talk to, that don't vote because they don't believe their votes and their ballot's going to be counted. And that's a huge problem. The bigger the turnout from Republicans and conservatives, the harder it is for them to conceal widespread fraud. It's going to be really hard. We have to have major turnout. And I know we're going to be watching Clackamas County, Washington County, Multnomah County very carefully for my race, because I'm going after Rob Wagner, who's the Democrat Senate Majority Leader. He's the Senate leader of the Democrat Party in Salem, and they're one of the most powerful caucuses in the state. The same thing goes for the Republican caucus. They're very powerful. They're more powerful than the ORP in terms of the national funding going through. And I want to say something. I'm an angry Oregonian. Well, we lost our businesses in 2020 in downtown Portland. We lost $1 million. We didn't have cash. We lost $1 million in assets. We put every dollar into these businesses. We did not have cash. We were cash strapped, but our assets were growing and growing and growing. But that's what you do when you're building up a small business. We lost everything. In fact, every single thing that we own, every asset is worthless in 2020, because so many thousands of other businesses like ours were going out of business, and no one was there to buy our assets. We couldn't even turn hard assets into cash. We lost everything, it evaporated. And so I got pissed, real pissed. And partly pissed at myself because I wasn't participating in the process. And you guys are all here, so I'm talking to the choir, because you guys are participating in the process right here, right now, on the most beautiful fall day we're probably ever going to have. And so that tells me a lot about this crowd. So what I did is I started Free Oregon in 2021 after we lost everything. And Free Oregon was just me, and that was it. And I started to find other people, one or two, that would come join me. And from there, we started to grow. And now we've got about 20,000 Oregonians connected to Free Oregon. It's a big accomplishment. And I'm not taking any credit for it, because all I am is just somebody that represents what we are. We're not happy. We're upset. We see what's going on. And we're getting in, we're starting to participate in the political process. And I'll tell you this right now. I'm about to bag on some Republicans in a minute. Nothing scares the established Republican people than people like me and you, who weren't paying attention in 2019, but we're paying attention now, right? Nothing scares them more. In fact, I'm going to talk about this guy named Tim Knope. Tim Knope is the leader of the Republican Senate caucus, the Senate Minority Leader. And Tim Knope and the Senate caucus, they won't help me at all. Not one penny. No assistance. In fact, they're out there spreading rumors that are false about me to PCPs and to try to divide me from the support that I would have in the ground game. They want to see Wagner have that seat because they can't control me. Because I don't answer to them. I answer to you. And I want to keep it that way. Right? So if you put me in office, then I answer to you. If Tim Knope puts me in office, I answer to him. But see, Tim Knope didn't put me in office. In fact, he ran someone against me in the primary. And they gave her money, and they helped her out. They gave her a campaign manager and did all kinds of stuff, like in-kind stuff. But we beat her 70-30 because I work for you, and you helped me come out and take that down. And she's a good person. She's a good lady, right? It wasn't her. I don't think she really knew what she was going up against. So this is something that we have to do. We have to get into these positions, and we have to call people out for who they are and what they're doing. We have to hold them accountable. Now, people that are in the establishment in this state, in Oregon, they do not want to be held accountable. That's right. Now, a good friend of mine in the Senate is a good one of the good ones, sent me something, and it was the CPAC Center for Legislative Accountability report card for Oregon. So all the votes, right? They went through, they look at every Republican, every single bill, and every single Democrat, and they rank by how conservative they are. And do you know who the lowest ranked senator is in Oregon? Guess. Tim Knope, the leader of this Republican Senate caucus. In fact, Betsy Johnson is better. She's the highest ranked Democrat. But I'm going with Drazen. It's time to turn Oregon red. Red. And that's all I'm saying about it. Back to my business. So I'm calling Tim Knope out because I don't just want Rod Wagner's job. You know, the guy that created the bill, chief sponsor of the bill that allows the state to count ballots 7 days after Election Day. Rod Wagner, chief sponsor of that bill. And that's not even the worst bill. In fact, it doesn't even come close. He sponsored and voted for and passed the bill reform bill. Last week, I had people sending me stuff about Illinois. They're going, wait, do you see what's going on in Illinois? They're doing bail reform. So if you commit murder, they can't hold you on bail. If you're arrested for murder, right? They can't hold you on bail. And I said, we've had that since 2021. What? Yes, Rod Wagner and the Senate Democrats voted for a bill that went through, it's on their website, that if you commit a Measure 11 crime, including up to murder, that no law enforcement agencies can hold you on bail if you're arrested for it. It's the bail reform. So they're letting people, dangerous people, out on our streets. There's over 15 bills from last year alone that Rod Wagner and the Senate Democrats passed. And the Republican caucus didn't really say much about this. You ever seen them on the news or nothing? It's pretty crazy. They didn't stand up to it. They didn't go buck wild about it, like I would have done. But like 15 bills that completely defunded and demoralized and prevented the police and our law enforcement agencies statewide from protecting you and me. And at the same time, they passed these crazy bills that prevented you from protecting yourself. House Senate Bill 554, all the gun reform bills, right? That's the gun-free zone. Now, when I go pick up my kid from school and I'm packing my firearm, which I am and I do, you know, they can arrest me. And I'm a CHL carrier, I'm a licensed concealed carrier. So I could do 1 year in prison. That's 554. It's crazy. Any public open to the building, any public building can put a sign that says this is a gun-free zone. And if you carry your firearm in there as a licensed CHL carrier, you can go to jail for 1 year. It's crazy. So this bill about the 7 days, you know, it says it when you look at the bill, when you read the description, it says It has to be postmarked. The ballots have to be postmarked, right, by election day for it to count. But when you read the bill, section 1(8), it says, it doesn't have to be postmarked. Sometimes they're just not postmarked, and that just happens. So I'm like, well, why did they give the summary saying it had to be postmarked when right there in the bill, in black and white, it says it doesn't have to be postmarked? So I look at this and I go, okay, what's the first thing that happened, really? The real first thing, they did the mail-in voting, right? And that was a long, long time ago. And they sort of boiled the frog with that. You could mail-in vote, you could go down to the polls and you could vote and show your ID and cast your ballot. Then they were like, yeah, let's make it illegal. Let's pass a bill that makes it illegal to vote in person. It's banned, it's outlawed in our state. Now, I've had some interesting conversations with Steve Jonkis. I think that might be voter suppression, which is against federal law. You mean I can't show up and vote in person? Sounds kind of oppressive, doesn't it? I don't like dealing with stamps and like stuff like that. Walking to the mailbox or going, that's a pain for me. That's like, I'd rather just go there and just go, thank you very much, done. So it's suppressive. So I think there's a lawsuit there. There's a possible lawsuit there that we can make sure that counties can offer in-person voting. Let's boil the frog back, right? Let's play that game. It's effective. And then what they do, they said, if you get a driver's license in Oregon, well, we're just gonna register you right then and there to be a non-affiliated voter. That's interesting. People go, that's weird, but I don't care. It doesn't really affect me. I don't mean whatever. More registered voters makes it easy. But the problem is that then they changed the driver's license to where your signatures are in photos right there in government databases. Now, I was talking with Janice the other day. This is crazy. I Googled this when we had that phone call. I Googled this. I was like, what? She says, there's pen machines. You can upload your JPEG of a signature, right? And then the machine, you put a pin in it, and it signs for you. Swear to God. And then I find out this technology's been around since like the 50s. This isn't even new stuff. Put the pen in there and you sign it. You go to these companies' websites and they're promoting it to government officials, big companies, government agencies. And they're like, this is the way you sign it. Real signatures, real pen. Run your stuff through and it signs it. Sign 100 of them an hour. They got the JPEGs from every single Oregonian with a driver's license or an ID card. It's there.
Eric has them.
Yeah.
Eric, the registration, is supposed to keep this. And it has all those things.
It's crazy. It's all there. So it's like, how do we prove it? How do we prove it? I hope we find out. I'm thinking about going into the state legislature and repealing these laws. We have to. We have to. We have to offer in-person voting. How is that illegal in Oregon? Well, because the legislator made it that way, and the governor signed it. But we have to put the pressure on. And that's what I'm going to do. So the big difference between me and a lot of people that are in Salem is this. My skin is about a quarter mile thick. It is. It is. I was just a business owner in Portland saying I don't feel like wearing a mask, a surgical mask, because I know it's really easy to see that surgical masks are there for surgeries to protect bacteria from going into open wounds and causing, MRSA infections and whatnot. Doesn't stop a virus. And I thought, man, if masks were smart, wouldn't we have been wearing them for the last couple 100,000 years? The only time masks are smart is if you're about to rob somebody. I'm serious. But they're not going to protect you or them from a virus. And I knew that, so I wouldn't wear one, and I don't like them. And that's reason enough for me. And so I started getting canceled as a business owner. That's how I got my tough skin. It was scary, scary, scary at first. But I just asked myself, well, what's right here and what's wrong here? And I just kept on talking. And I kept on going in without wearing a mask. And I wouldn't put the signs on my doors. I wouldn't put a BLM sign in my windows, even though they called me and said, "You don't put a BLM sign, we're going to smash your windows." I'm like, "Come smash my windows. You better do when I'm not there." So we just stood up. And that's what we have to do. It's our duty. The government is not in control of us. We are in control of it. Our government is a lot of people. And in Oregon, our government is a lot of weak people. We've elected very weak people. Because the weak people get the money. Because the strong people have the money. They need a weak person to carry out their objectives. I have no money. None. So you can trust me for that. Wagner's got a couple $100,000 in his pack. Any money that comes into my pack, it's already spent twice before it hits. But we're fighting hard. We've got 75 volunteers, probably more volunteers than anybody in the state. We need more. And we have to send a message. And we can do it. And we're watching this election, and you have to send a message by getting involved, finding your group, finding the thing that God gave you, the ability that God gave you that you can use for this fight. Our founding fathers of this country fought the most powerful empire in the world over the price of tea. Essentially. That's what did it.
Tax on the tea.
Taxation without representation. And right now in Oregon and in Portland especially, we have a humanitarian crisis where people are dying in our streets with needles in their arms. People are dying in the streets from gang violence at an unprecedented rate. And we have no public safety. That is taxation without representation. And for me, it's enough to have a revolution. Do you know that the First Response, the company First Response? It's the company that cleans dead bodies off the streets in Portland. That's the contractor. In 2020, they cleaned up, 89 bodies off the street. In the last 12 months, they've cleaned up over 460. It's a humanitarian crisis. We can't sit here and allow it anymore. We can't. We have to stand up. And we have to take action. I'll leave you with this. Every single morning, God and I play this game. It's a fun game. I've been really enjoying it. The first thought I have when my eyes open up is God telling me something. And then I do some meditation stuff, and I have 2 minutes or whatever, and I move on. It's full blast through the day. But today, when my eyes opened, it just said that fortune favors the bold. That's kind of sucks that was a quote from a tyrant, Julius Caesar. Did you put that up?
Be bold and mighty forces will come to your aid.
That's right. That's what I got today. Being bold means I'm attacking people on my side and their side for what they are. Calling a spade, and then taking action and making sacrifices. That's how we're going to do it, so let's keep doing it. We'll take this.
I want to thank Daryl Haynes for his generosity and his patriotism for making this venue possible and making it affordable to help with our mission. And Jen, his assistant. And also I want to thank anybody that donated already, Steve Frost and Dan Tews, who donated some to our cause, and someone that Janice brought us donated some to our cause, and we put our own time and money into it as well. And I also want to thank Bob Terry for his wise counsel. All of our people that have been in this loosely fit but united front, all the speakers, that we all stay in contact and we're all keeping up with each other and moving forward as we go. And I appreciate all the out-of-state guests. I want to thank them, and all of you, thank you that you care, that you're willing to go to any lengths to do what's right, and we really appreciate it. So we have, like I said, retained an attorney, so we are moving forward. And tell your friends, share what you can, share your pictures, talk about it, get people involved. Get your niche, like Ben said, find your niche. So I want to thank May and my partner in the Justice League for all of our collaboration and time, and thank you, May, for all of our energy together. We spent a lot of hours, and I appreciate it that there's someone else out there and all you that want to do something about it. So thank you so much. Feel free, there's a little more time you can pay, whatever you have the time. Thank you. So Justice League of Oregon.org is our website. Thank you.